All right.
And we are live. So for anyone, I'm going to wait for some people to jump in. Wait for it to kind of go on.
Isn't that the best?
Hey, can you guys see the comments like in Streamyard? Can you see the comments?
I don't,
Yes.
but
I can see.
Okay, I was going to say, if not, you can just go to like my channel and go to lives, and you can follow the chat along in there as well. Just put it on mute. So I mean, it's usually like a little bit behind. It lags a bit, so don't look at it. But the comments will be there at least. All right, so for everyone joining us,
dude, I can see it now. Sorry.
You're good. Well, who we have here tonight? So some of you may know Orion. He's got his own YouTube channel. Obviously, from his background, you can see exactly what that's going to entail, and we'll definitely dive into that. But a lot of you don't probably know Steve. So Steve reached out to me on eBay. He saw some of my videos and reached out. We've been kind of talking through eBay, actually, is weird enough. And he actually made this one video, and he sent it to me and said, hey, you got to check this out. And it was a great video, and it really broke down just like investing, Pokemon investing, like finances in general. And I'm going to leave a link to, both their channels in the description. I think Steve's, that video is going to be a really good watch if you guys have some time later. But it was so good. I'm like, hey, I need to bring you on the channel. This is what people need. We need to talk about this. People need to hear this. It's going to help them a lot. And so that's kind of where this live came together. And so, the title, like, is it safe to invest in Pokemon cards? We're going to kind of discuss a lot of that stuff. Like, the most responsible way to use your money, where you're kind of at in your life. And, if whatever type of personal circumstances or personal goals you have and how much money you should or could be allocating to investing, especially Pokemon. And so we're going to dive into a bunch of those subjects. But look, I'll start off with Orion, and then we'll go to Steve. Just kind of introduce yourself and kind of give any type of intro you want to give.
Well, what's up, people? Thank you guys for coming out to this chat, being there for Alex and being there for myself, as well as Steve, who I've just met and been talking to him for a little bit. So my whole deal is I kind of like Alex, we'll talk about the market a little bit, talk about basic things on my channel that regard Pokemon, that regard what's going on in the community, things that I'm feeling, like where the market's going, how I think the hobby is going to be accepted moving forward in this next era with Scarlet and Violet. And then just talking about random vintage pickups. I've had a mail day series that I did for a long time until recently, where I basically made a video kind of stating that, one, I am definitely addicted to collecting Pokemon products, and two, kind of talking about my experiences with it and explaining how I've kind of dialed back a little bit. I've slowed down on my mail day videos, and I'm just really watching the market right now. The last thing that I bought that was major was several cases of Scarlet and Violet. I think that going from the yellow borders to the silver borders right now is really, that's a historic thing. So I'm hoping that Scarlet and Violet will be a good set. And I'm starting to do openings, but I also don't want to be one of those channels that gets burned out on opening product all the time. That's not something that I think everybody can relate to. Not the average person is not going to be able to spend $50 a day, $100 a day opening up products of modern sealed Pokemon cards back to back to back. And it feels like gambling, and it's addictive in nature. And I talk about a lot of that stuff and try and be a little bit more transparent than I think everybody is. I think a lot of times it's with really big channels, it's like, it's all good in the Pokemon community. Everything is good. But meanwhile, a lot of us are pouring life savings into something like this. And it's fun. It's flashy. And I don't know, just COVID time, that was a big time for everybody getting into Pokemon. And that's around the time that I wanted to make my own channel. So my channel has just came with the other YouTubers and everybody that started up the past like year and a half ago. So that's I'm not sure if I touched base on everything. But yeah, that's my whole spiel. I love vintage stuff, and I'm gonna let Steve take it from here.
Cool. Yeah. I'm not a content creator, so I'll just do this a little bit differently. I'm just like one of the average viewers for y'all's channels. So came out of high school, did a year of college, dropped out, joined the Marine Corps, came out of the Marine Corps, and went to college on the GI Bill, and then got a job. And along the way, was a nerd back in the day, played Pokemon like I'm sure all of us did, or we wouldn't be here in the first place. But just kind of carried that closet nerd with me forever. And then got to where I had some disposable income and started buying sealed product. I actually started with, I'm a huge WoW fan. So I actually started with collector's versions of World of Warcraft, but that started in 2015 and then up till now. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of just my story, but I think my perspective that I'm going to try and bring is going to be probably a little bit off the beaten path. Most of you guys that follow Jake and Orion, or I'm sorry, Alex and Orion, you guys are,
Right.
you guys are, obviously into Pokemon. So I think, hearing from like a normal dude might be helpful, and just going to bring like opportunity cost and other conversations about finance in general, kind of into the loop that most of the guys that are driving Pokemon content, not that they're not mentioning it or talking about it, but just a fresh take maybe. And I have no aspirations to be a YouTuber or push anything or do anything. So maybe just a new face.
I mean, that I guess that's like some shots fired right there, man. Calling me Jake, that hurts.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, no. So I mean, let's jump into it. So yeah, I mean, just kind of go off the title, like kind of what we were talking about a little beforehand. We got on stream. I mean, okay, so for average people, right? I mean, we can think about like the average salaries. I mean, what average people go through, right? You know, if you're single, if you're married, some have kids, regular, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a year jobs, obviously this stuff is really expensive. I mean, just one booster case, right, out of the gate, $650 now. I mean, $650 is most people's car payment for the month, like half your mortgage for a lot of people, your whole grocery bill for the month. I mean, it's a lot of money. But then when you jump into Pokemon, it's one single measly booster box case with 6 boxes. And you feel like you're not doing enough. You feel like, this little investment, like it's not really doing much for you. So and I think people feel like that a lot when they invest in anything. It's like when you start putting money into the stock market, it's like, oh, well, do I buy, 5 shares of Amazon, or do I, you can't really afford to like make your money work the way the big guys do. You don't get to see those massive gains. And so a lot of people lose interest, or what happens a lot of the time is you go a lot harder than you should, and you start going into debt, or you start spending way more money than you should. And you're mesmerized by all the gains and all the kind of excitement that you see all over YouTube and what other people are doing, and these massive collections and this massive amount of money changing hands. And yeah, I'll be the first person to say it's not healthy a lot of the time. And I'm probably in some way, shape, or form a part of that, issue. But Steve, like, kind of jump into that. I mean, I know you had a lot of good thoughts on that. Just kind of take it where you want to go with that.
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, right away, man, you said it's a car payment. And I would say like that right there should be a huge red flag. I get it, man. Cars are cool. Motorcycles are cool. Like I like having nice shit too. But if you had a $600 a month car payment, you are killing yourself. It's a liability. It goes down, and it's not something that appreciates unless you're buying like old school stuff, and then you wouldn't be driving it. So like having a car payment, that's kind of where I think maybe I'll bring a fresh perspective, just to talk a little, maybe I'm going to call it talk sense. But, if you've got a car payment, like, dude, I drive a 2004 Dodge Ram, but I've got a sweet house. I've got no debt. I've got a good job. I'm able to invest in Pokemon. I'm able to invest in alternative assets, traditional assets, my 401k through my company. Like having a $600 a month car payment, like the opportunity cost of you having that car payment is insane. It's insane. $600 a month. I'm going to do this real quick. $600 a month, age 30. Most of us are probably 30 to 60, invested at 8%.
That doesn't even get you a case right now. Like that's the thing. You're like 650. Like for what? What case are you getting for 650? Like it used to be 500, and now I feel like 700 and up is like the norm, and that's just nuts for a box this big. With other little boxes, it's all cardboard. It's crazy.
Scarlet Violet cases are sitting right just over like 650 right now, like before taxes. So it's
wow.
They're getting back there.
I think that's come down a little bit. I think before it released, people were paying more than that. I think
absolutely.
Paid like 612 or something.
Yeah, they were over 700 at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so I got my figure now. So if you started with $600 and you invested $600 a month for 30 years, age 30 to 60, and you got 8% on that, just take a stab. Guess what the number is? It's a lot more than you think. $900,000. So that's what your cool truck's costing you. So.
No, even a boring online savings account at a 4%, and you have your money sitting in that. That is so much safer. Yes, you're going to go head in head with inflation, but that is so much safer. It's interesting. I don't know if you have more you're going to touch up on that. I'm definitely interested to hear what you have to say.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was in the same boat. Say what?
I'm just interested to hear what else you have to talk about.
Oh, no, I think that's one of those big things is, I just think, because of social media, we didn't have to deal with this back in the day, right? You just everyone was kind of in the same boat. I mean, whatever neighborhood you kind of grew up in or school you went to, most people's parents were all in the same kind of, economical level. Everyone kind of had around the same collection. Some kid parents went over the board and got them a little more, but it wasn't like this where you get online, you see people with like these hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars of collections and these, like alpha investments. You see Rudy with these stacks of cases, and it takes $650 to buy just one of those. And then you'll see these cards going for like Moonbryon going for like $1,000, $2,000 graded, and you just think of all these other things you can do in your life other than buy this one card. Now, fast forward in the future, if you can give hindsight, right? You see like all these gains you could have made. And then it creates this whole other aspect in your brain telling you, well, see, you would have had double the amount of money. You weren't spending your money, you were investing it. And so then you kind of get in this, this fallacy of thinking, of fooling yourself saying, well, everything's investing, right? Like you'll convince yourself to open boxes and say, well, no, this is still an investment because I can pull this, or, well, I didn't pull anything good, but that's okay. I'll hold these long enough to go up in value in the future. Yeah. And you just keep playing that game. When eventually you have to kind of come to terms with, hey, sometimes this doesn't work for everyone's lifestyle, and that's fine. But like, Steve said, if you are in a comfortable position and you don't have debt and you are looking for, other places to put money to grow it faster, and you're okay with a little risk, I think Pokemon's a great place to do that. I mean, you have your stable income or your stable investments going in 401k. You have your house getting paid down. You don't have debts. So you're not, it's not costing you money to live each day. You're looking for a better return than what the stock market's giving you. So it makes sense. And so I think that's like the biggest thing I wanted to cover tonight is who it makes sense for and who it doesn't make sense for. So Orion, you were, kind of talking about like how almost like it felt like an addiction. You got in, you're buying all this stuff, and some of it was at the top of the market. So, I mean, how have you kind of, I guess, evolved or kind of stabilized yourself into making this more of a healthy hobby, healthy investment place for you?
So here's the thing. I've always collected something in my life, whether it was sneakers or watches or cars. There was always something that I was interested in. And to that point of the opportunity costs of having your money in something else, I've had watches, I've had sneakers, I still currently have my cars. All of these investments, money in the bank, all these investments, the government gets involved. You're paying taxes, you're paying property tax on this stuff yearly. Our house, for example, you're paying property tax on that yearly. You're giving that money to the state, to the government yearly. I am so tired of giving my hard-earned money to the government for everything that I'm doing. Maybe I should be careful about saying that, but I think there's a lot of people out there that agree with me. And Pokemon is like, I mean, other than the sales tax that you're going to pay, the fees you're going to pay eBay, the reporting on your taxes that you have a side hustle of, let's say, selling cards. That's what you're giving them. But for the most part, especially if you can meet people locally and sell your collection off for cash, you're not paying nearly what you would pay on taxes, or just dealing with the maintenance and the cost of owning this stuff on a yearly basis, right? Your car, you're paying for your license plate stickers, you're paying for your insurance, your house, something breaks, your HVAC, you got to fix that. I love how investments are hinged on this thing that can be stored so easily, and it takes up barely any space. And granted, there's not the best insurance on this stuff. You kind of will need a big safe to store some of your more valuable stuff. That's one of the biggest issues that I see. But I think for all these reasons, I decided maybe this is just a COVID time for cards. Maybe cards are just starting to go up while I'm starting to get bigger into collecting. But I kept telling myself it's better late than never. Even though I'm 23 years late coming, or 20 years late coming back to it, there's still a lot of room for Pokemon to go, right? 20 years, I'm 28 now. I mean, Pokemon, that franchise could go on for decades and decades. And, if that's to happen, then getting in at 20 years after it's really established itself, and now we're like, you've got people coming from all over to try and, successfully do YouTubes that are on Pokemon cards. There's a lot of people getting into the hobby, and that's also driving prices of stuff up, which is making investors very happy. I think it's a very strong investment in terms of comparing it to some other things. And then when you've got stuff like Alex talking about Fusion Strike, I don't know if it was months ago or a year ago, but I saw a video. Alex was talking about Fusion Strike, and Fusion Strike, remember looking, it was like $81 or something. And I remember thinking, man, Pokemon is taking it hard with these sets. No, that was just a really good opportunity to get in on that set. And I always think about that. I still don't have a case of Fusion Strike, but I always think about that, how that set, what is that at, around 150 or 140? That's still, what, 70, 80%? I mean, it's ridiculous in that short a period of time. And imagine, like Rudy, if you were a big investor and you had a basement stocked with this stuff, now you're selling this stuff off and you're like, all right, money made. It's been a year. And it's not going to work out like that with all the products. There are going to be sets like Pokemon Go, etc., that are just, I feel like, going to be flops. Some people, I'm sure, like Pokemon Go, but I don't even think I opened anything Pokemon Go, because I just had my gut radar was like, not that one.
You had to throw Pokemon Go at me, didn't you? You just had to
but I think it's super solid, and the way to balance that, just to not continually go off tangents, the way to balance that I've found is, one, I admitted that I had a problem, right? It's unfortunate to get to a point where you're like, I'm an adult and I could have had more restraint on how much stuff I was buying, how I was spending money. The second one is reversing it, right? So I had the credit card debt. I own everything outright. I don't owe debt on anything other than that card in the period that I owed it for Pokemon cards, because I remember in that same video you were talking about the Fusion Strike, you were like, you buy this, you also get 2% back on your card. Whatever card you're using, you're getting 2% back on. I remember you said that, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting 2% back. Let's go. And, you're factoring all these things in. And so if I spent $100,000 on Pokemon stuff in the last year, I know that I got at least $2,000 back. And I've paid off that card completely now. So, and that's something I made to, I told my subscribers that have, supported me and kind of also been my therapy through this, is like, all right, I've spent a lot of money on this stuff. Let's reverse that. I'm going to take a break, guys. I'll still be doing videos, but not as much like mail day videos and getting in a bunch of stuff. The last thing was starting an online business. I had already done that 2 years ago. That was on Mercari. I would just sell stuff when I wanted to. And it was pretty good. And then I started eBay like 2-3 weeks ago. And now, because of auctions, you can sell your stuff quickly, and then you're figuring out logistics for this stuff, how you're going to ship it cheaply. And so I've just figured out and successfully done this. If I can ship cards for 60 cents and I'm getting $4 or $5 a card, but I've got hundreds of those things stacked. Yes, that's going to take time to get that money back. But if I buy someone's collection for $200 and it's got a big stack of those holographic $3-5 cards, that's an incredible investment to be making. And even if the market were going right now, my auctions would say the opposite of that, because I'm not even selling anything that's crazy right now. I'm selling very like low end, cheaper cards, still cool holos, but nothing crazy. And I'm like already like for the first time selling my stuff off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting my money back and then some for this. And I really, to be honest with you, thought I was going to lose some of my money, and that is not happening so far.
So you just started an eBay 3 to 4 weeks ago?
I just started one. I'm not a seller. I'm a collector. I think a lot of people that are watching this are going to be able to relate with that. I think at some point it becomes you have to start moving this stuff. Otherwise, like he says, like Steve says, you're putting everything else, you're putting those opportunity costs in jeopardy. You're not able to move as fluid with your money. And I think it's important, to also, for those people that shop solely for Grail cards, I think it's important to be able to liquidate. And the fact that I've shopped in the more mid-tier, lower-tier grade stuff, I think has made it very easy for me to liquidate, because the average person can afford a $20 card. They can afford a $15 card. They can afford a $50 card. They might not be able to afford a $100 card, a $1,000 card, Crystal Lugia and an 8 for $2,000, $1,500. Like that's crazy.
Right.
And like you're saying,
Steve,
multiple paychecks.
So Steve, what do you think about all this, man? I see you sitting there stewing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's down the rabbit hole for sure. I mean, this is where you guys excel. This is what you do. And I think it's actually kind of cool that you're more of a collector, Orion, and I'm definitely like more of an investor. I view it more as a vehicle. So I'm not really interested in cracking I don't have an addiction. I don't want to crack packs. I don't really get anything out of that, but I do remember what that used to be like. But I know I take a little bit more like black and white kind of approach, which will be cool, I think, to have both perspectives. But just know that there are people out there that have a philosophy like mine, but they have insane. I mean, their pockets are so deep. And you're talking guys like Rudy. There's a lot of guys like Rudy that have shit tons of product. Sorry, I'm going to try and watch my mouth, but tons of product. And when it comes time, let's say, dude, when Rudy closes shop, do you realize the kind of liquidity crisis there could potentially be? Maybe not for everything. Maybe some stuff is still moving good, but a dude who's trying to unload pallets and pallets at a time times many people like him. If everyone wanted to leave the space, say the economy started getting shaky in the next 18 months and dudes started offloading some of their product, I mean, you could be stuck on sitting on product, and that would present opportunities for other people who are sitting on the sidelines. So the great thing about eBay is that you always have liquidity, right? You might not have liquidity at a given price that you think something's worth. Let's say you think let's take Evolutions is a $700 box. Well, if things get bad, it might sell for $300, and that could be undervalued for sure. But if you say like, hey, I can't post this thing. If you post it for buy it now, it's going to be undercut and undercut and undercut and undercut. So I'm just going to put it up for bid and just walk away from it. You have liquidity, right? Like in 7 days, you will have liquidity. Another 7 days, eBay will send your payout. So like you have 2 weeks from going from sealed product to cash. But if things got bad enough and there were a lot of people that needed to get out of this to pay their bills, that you could face some pretty serious losses. But you do have a floor on this stuff, right? Like there's always going to be people that say, well, I mean, $80, I'll buy basically any set of Pokemon, $80 a sealed box. That's almost a floor, right? Almost a floor. Now it's not though. Back in the GameStop days, like 2000, I don't know if we were still in 2020 or if we were into 2021 yet. But when GameStop was absolutely ripping, I traded some derivatives on GameStop and I bought 48 boxes of Sun and Moon Crimson Invasion for $65 a box. And I just offloaded my last one like 2 or 3 days ago, but it took me about 2 months to offload 48 boxes of Crimson Invasion at lowest buy it now. So there is liquidity, even in a good market. There is liquidity is something that people need to keep in mind. And I'm nothing compared to some of these guys that are moving serious. I mean, guys like Rudy that are just pushing stuff, and the Patreons that he has, there's some serious whale patrons of his that are buying 100 boxes a month. And
Yeah.
that's more Magic than Pokemon, but there's kind of my long-winded answer to that.
Yeah, I kind of want to expand on that. So that's actually something I think about constantly, is because everyone talks about it. Everyone thinks about it as, well, it's kind of the big argument with modern. Well, who's going to buy all this stuff in the future? And I think there's going to be, customers, but like you said, with these gigantic positions out there, I always think about, how spread out you're going to have your positions, and how diversified you're going to be, because it can cause a problem. If you get really deep in a set and you end up getting, multiple cases worth, it could present a problem. That's why, there's always that thought of well, maybe I should just diversify and get a whole bunch of different cards, maybe a few of each box, or maybe a case, and then a bunch of cards from vintage and modern and mid-era, and try to just spread out as much as you can and cast a wide net, and then you're kind of playing more of a mutual fund strategy instead of buying a single stock type thing. But one thing I've learned from that, though, is you're usually going to have, less gains when things happen, because usually when things move, only certain things spike. And when you get it right, you hit it big, kind of like evolutions, like we talked about. But yeah, I mean, what do either of you guys, I mean, Orion, you're more of a collector. So, I mean, I can see behind you, you pretty much want to have one of everything. But I guess, Steve, you go first. Is that something you think about? I mean, do you not go as heavy into single things because you don't want to be caught with too much of a bag if something does go wrong, or do you still take large positions, or do you kind of try to spread it out and diversify more?
Well, so a little bit of both. I mean, I still like to think that I'm smart enough to have some plays dialed in, but usually those are the ones that bite you in the ass. But my strategy is to buy a set amount of sealed boxes or sealed cases of Magic and Pokemon every release, even though it's going to be dead money. Most of the time in a normal market, you're sitting on dead money until the stuff goes out of print. But even still, it was to buy a set number of sealed booster cases of every set as soon as it released, and get it at $79.99 shipped back in the good old days, and throw it in the closet and walk away from it. Something like Celebrations, I think, is a knockout set. I think Celebrations is going to own in 5 years, 10 years. So I still have a pretty sizable position in Celebrations, but I was just kind of playing the mutual fund dollar cost average game. I just set a dollar amount that I felt comfortable with and my wife was comfortable with, and just said, hey, this amount of money is going into this every year. And I never really deviated because, again, I wasn't really wrapped up in the emotions. I don't have that desire to open these packs and chase a card or anything like that. So yeah, I would basically just cast a wide net and buy booster cases of every set.
All right. So Orion, where are you at these days? Are you still just kind of collecting, kind of what you want? Have you transitioned at all into any type of investing? Are you kind of in this mode now where you just, you're starting to sell your collections, so now you're going to start getting into more collection buys and flips? Where do you see yourself going, from here?
So the first thing is first, I know what I spent on my entire collection to date, and basically, and I've told my wife this, that I want to match that number in the next year or two. I would like to at least sell off enough things that I could match that number in a year or two. Now, that's probably unrealistic for me. It'd probably take more like 3 or 4 years of trimming off things. But for the most part, I do look at Pokemon as a trading card game as much as a investing game as much as a trading card game. I love opening stuff up, but also I like getting my money back out of it as well. I think right now I'm going to be doing steady auctions from here on out. It's also a skill set that I now have that I'll be able to sell online. And I bought several cases of Scarlet Violet. I'm probably going to get at least 1 or 2 cases of Paldea Evolved. I'm just going to not regret, buying this stuff. I'm just going to hold myself a little bit more accountable and worry less about my channel growing and opening stuff up to do lives for everybody. Like that's just that's a rabbit hole that you end up going down if you want your channel to grow and you just feel like there's nothing else for you to talk about. So you've just got to open cards 24/7. That's not something that I want to get roped into anymore. I have traditional investments. I've invested a ton of money. I think what really got this ball rolling with collecting was I invested a ton of money in the stock market. 2.5, 3 years ago, I invested a ton of money in the stock market, and things have been going good for the first couple months. For the first year, I got really cocky, and then everything got wrapped up in the market. Like Alex was saying, you get wrapped up in this thing, it gets emotional. I chased that, and I threw everything into the market because I didn't want my money to be sitting. I had friends. I went to school for finance. I had friends that went to school for finance, and they were all like, dude, if your money's sitting in an account, if you have a ton of money in an account, you're an idiot right now. You need to get that money working. Robinhood was all the rage. So Pokemon was always something, like I've always loved Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon since I was a kid. Those are things I've always loved as a kid. So I definitely have undeniably an emotional attachment to this trading card stuff. But as far as moving forward, that investment in the market has not panned out. So I started Pokemon cards, and now there's that business, and that brings in money, and I actually do see it as an investment. So I'm going to continue buying sealed product. What I'm not going to continue is, and I would not wish upon anybody to continue doing this if they're in a vicious cycle of just buying really expensive vintage stuff, just tons of stuff on a bid list, and constantly putting themselves into debt. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. That is, that's first world problem, right? But I still think it's very easy to get addicted and get sucked into all of it, and buy into this stuff constantly. So that's something that I'm not really going to be doing moving forward. But I'm very interested to be in it and kind of be settled and have my collection foundation that I'm happy with. Like, I'm happy with where I'm at. I had to get to this point. I'm very OCD. I'm very ADD. Like, I had to get certain things. For me, it is like I do want, one of everything. Eventually, maybe not like how I'm trying to collect, which is like, I want everything in 3 years. I want every Pokemon product in 3 years, and then I'm good. I'll be happy. Now it's like, no, I'll be collecting for the next decades, and we'll see where I get in a couple of decades, and that'll be cool down the road. And that's pretty much where I'm at, is just trying to have a little bit more willpower and being transparent on my channel, especially about it's okay to occasionally go down a rabbit hole and buy a bunch of stuff. Even if you're not looking at it as an investment, you just really like the stuff, that's okay. But to be doing that perpetually for an extended period of time, that's super unhealthy. I feel a huge weight off my back just not buying anything right now. It feels great, but you got to spend a lot of money to make a lot of money. And in this, I'm starting my YouTube. That was a thing that I was kind of obsessed with, was I have to keep getting cooler stuff to show people this is the type of stuff I'm collecting. And I just don't operate like that anymore. Yeah,
no, that's a real problem. So Steve, let's jump into one of those topics we talked about beforehand. Because I think it's definitely pretty important. The fact is how it seems that most of us are all around the same age, anywhere from mid-late 20s to mid-late 30s. It seems like most everyone involved in this hobby seriously, especially investing wise, is in that age group. We kind of all grew up with it. At some point, we got too cool for school. It wasn't cool anymore. And then now in our adult years, we're coming back to the things we enjoyed as kids. And, a lot of us are going, all of us are going through different stages of our life, whether you're, still single, you're getting married, are you having kids? Do you want to buy a property? And all these different life events happen. And a lot of things might take precedence over your Pokemon collection. And even if it's an investment, your wife might not, or for girls that are out there, your husband might understand all this money you have wrapped up in that. And there's other things you want, other things you want to do in your life, and your kids need things. And so do you think that's going to play any part, in the next, I guess, near term, 0 to 5 years, maybe even a little longer, in the strength of the hobby, or do you think there's just enough, new blood coming in, and enough resurgence up, and there's always going to kind of be this constant turnover, but the core of the hobby stays strong? Where's your thoughts on all that, man?
I mean, that topic alone, I think, is worthy of hours of content, but I think that exactly. So I think most people are male. I don't have YouTube analytics to prove that, but I'm sure you could go in and say exactly your age demographic, and mostly males. So I think we're all in that same.
Eric, I'll cut you off right there. So yeah, it's at least my demographic. I know Rudy always jokes about it, like 3 point something. So yeah, my demographics are like 2 point something% female.
Exactly.
And it's 90% between the ages of like 25 and 40.
Okay. So that bleeds right into this. I mean, it's validation enough for me to think that it's at least worth considering that that's part of the risk. And I'll explain why. So you're 25, you're single, you're just getting started in your career after college, and things are going good. You meet a chick, you start getting serious. By 28, you're engaged. By 30, you're ready to buy a house. So that's a 5-year span of time. And traditionally 2 to 5 years is a decent hold period expectation for anything, really. Stocks, product, like you would be considered a long-term holder at 5 years, right? So if we're all roughly the same age, and we're all roughly, the majority of us are what's propping up this investing category. I understand a lot of y'all are collectors. So, but I'm just saying, if you still want your collection to be worth something. So just keep in mind that there are big fish out there that are moving product, and they're pretty much the same age group. And when you get married or your life situation changes, if you say, well, I've been holding it for 5 years, I just think there could, that the fact that we're all roughly the same age could create a situation where there's going to be no one buying and a lot of people trying to sell. And that doesn't mean it won't sell, but it might not sell for what you think it's worth, or even what it is worth, because the market tells you what it's worth. So, we use that evolution's going for 350, in that hypothetical. So that's 50% off where it is today. But if it sells for 350, I mean, that's the market telling you that's what it's priced at. And that could be a great opportunity, or it could be a sign of a paradigm shift. So, I think that the demographics are important to keep in mind. If you are coming at this from a financial gain, and that's your main concern. And if you've never gone through a selling process, and I'm not talking about selling like 1 or 2 cards, I'm talking about offloading some serious product, that requires time. So just total transparency, I offloaded a 6-figure position, and it took me about 2.5 months to sell it all. And booster boxes are pretty liquid, but it still took a long time to move. And if you need cash tomorrow, or in my case, like I want the opportunity cost, like a lot of this stuff is done well. It's been a forced savings plan in a lot of ways, even for the product that hasn't appreciated a lot. I get my capital back, or at least most of it. And I want to deploy it somewhere else where I think there's some opportunity. So that keeping in mind the demographics and the fact that we're all roughly the same age, and even now in a pretty liquid market, it's a process. And if you needed access to that capital, you might find yourself in a bad spot. So that would be how I'd answer that question in 5 minutes, when it could easily take 5 hours.
I'm sorry, I have to interject. You liquidated a 6-figure collection position in 2 months.
Yeah. So from I'll pull up my eBay right now.
Whoa.
So, and there's still some things that haven't sold yet. But in this quarter,
here, go ahead and pull that up.
Can I screen share?
If you can figure out how.
Okay, well here, I don't want to do that, so let's just see if this will.
I should probably get more tech savvy before my next live, huh?
Can you see that? So $86,146 in total sales this quarter. So just under a 6-figure position. And while I'm on that, I actually think it's important to talk about your selling cost too, because I'm looking at the number right now and it's ridiculous. It's 17.2% on eBay. And I am a top rated seller, so I even get the discount. So out of your 86, you're already losing 17% off the top. That's a massive hit. So caveat, but important nonetheless.
Yeah, and I probably need to do a better job of that on my channels, talking about that. I mean, just like Mr. Walrus says, I love everything about this hobby except shipping orders. I hate the whole process, find the card, package it. I mean, a friend of mine, literally, when we both kind of sold out near, during the boom of everything, and he refuses to do anything Pokemon anymore because of that process. Like, I'll be honest, when you have that larger position, because I had that larger position, and it sucks. It does suck. I mean, it's so monotonous taking all the pictures, because if you want your items to sell right, you got to take close-up pictures. You got to take every angle, every side of the sealed product. You got to get close-ups of every card and PSA card. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to throw them all at auction? Well, then you're at the whim of the market. And I mean, during the boom, it was a little easier because everything was so liquid. But now, I mean, if you have especially some more obscure items, you got to list them and buy it now or best offer. And you got to wait for people to offer you something reasonable. And it does take time, and shipping, it takes work. You got to go pull the box, wrap it in bubble wrap, get it in the box, tape it, go in the computer and do all the shipping, whether you're going to ship it through USPS, FedEx, UPS, somewhere else, pay for that, ship the label, stick it on there. And then, you're making trips to the post office every day. Yeah, it is definitely the worst part about the whole hobby. And Orion, I mean, just going as long as you have without having to until now, that's amazing. See, because I honestly,
I'm looking forward to just offloading it. This is going to be fun.
Well, that's what I would ask you about too, though, is like, so the minute I guess I consider I stopped being a collector was when I saw the gains. And it was because of, that same friend of mine, he came to my house and saw everything I had, and then he wanted to start buying it, went home and started looking stuff up, and then called me and said, "Hey, I thought you said this cost X amount. I thought you said a base set booster pack was $30. All I see is $60 and $70 at a low." And it was that moment where I realized, oh, this stuff's investable. And like from that moment on, like I could never go back to like not looking at the money. Like before then, I was buying what I could, spending money, but I could never go back and not just constantly be worried about the numbers. So how do you kind of stay grounded and still be a collector even after kind of realizing all the financial aspects of it?
Well, actually, it's simple. The YouTube. I always kind of just, and I told my wife this, like I'm not gonna sell this stuff unless I absolutely have to. Like if we need to get a new home, if I need to liquidate, if we have another kid and we need this spare room that we have, boom, that's it. It's gone. I'll continue. If people want to follow, if people want to see content and I want to continue the channel, then hopefully it'll still be there. But I made this awesome game room, and my dad gave me some ideas of what I could do. And I just put up some shelves, and it was initially just a room where I would go and be like, this is my cool collection. And then it was called the wall, the crazy wall that was getting bigger, and it got bigger, and I gained subscribers, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I really doing YouTube? And then I went on vacation, and the channel hit like 1,000 subscribers while I was on vacation. And I pretty much flipped out because I was like, Mom, Dad, like I have a YouTube channel with 1,000 subscribers and it's monetized. And I got really excited over that. And that's been the whole fun of Pokemon, is that I get to reach out and talk to so many other people in the community. Thousands, tens of thousands of people in this community. Well, millions of people. And, I think I was going to do a video on this too, like balancing out being a collector and selling stuff, right? Because like you were just saying, like I love the hobby. I don't love that aspect. I was telling my wife, I was like, honestly, like it's so easy to buy all this stuff and be like, okay, I'm going to earn that back. I'm making good money this week. So I run a bar. That's what I do. That's my full-time thing. We run a bar, and some nights I'll be like, all right, I pulled in tips, what that graded card is going to cost me. So I rationalize things in my head a lot, and I just have worked harder and not smarter necessarily. I think along the way I could have been selling stuff that I got good deals for, stuff that I found locally. But I'd always just thought the YouTube. It's going to work out. If you do what you love, it's going to work out. And instead of trying to play the number game and like find what sets we're going to do well, what cards we're going to do well that I could flip, it was just, what do I like? What do I like? That's what I'm going to go for. No, it is not calculated. It is not fully an investment thing. But after I got most of the vintage stuff and the displays and the theme decks that I wanted, because I almost have a complete Wizards of the Coast theme deck collection. I'm missing like maybe 3 or 4 theme decks total of the whole Wizards of the Coast theme deck collection. But like once I got most of that stuff completed, it was like, okay, so I've got a vintage collection. Now I'm going to move on to modern sealed product. I'm going to start stocking up that stuff. But it was always go broke or go home. Like I really was taking the most risk possible with my channel, with my finances. And I just kind of realized, even some of my subscribers have like messaged me and been like, dude, you are buying so much stuff. It's such a rapid pace. It's kind of like, it's almost unbelievable. Like, are you okay? And, you know, after a lot of reflecting and realizing how much money I was making a week at the bar and how much money I was spending on Pokemon product or repaying credit card stuff, it was like, Ryan, this is not sustainable. This is not going to be sustainable for you. And now that I've started selling, it's like, oh my God, it's such a headache to get all this stuff shipped out to the next person. And then you're worried about feedback. You're worried about what that person's going to say about you. Did I package this right? Is it going to get there on time? Is USPS going to get my beloved package to the next buyer? Hopefully, is this whole thing going to go well? And it's really stressful. And I'm just dealing with that now because I'm like, your YouTube is not, you're not going to go super famous on YouTube overnight. So you're going to have to go with the reality, you know, with the revenue the ad revenue that you get. You're going to have to, you know, base that off of what you could make and do with your money if it was not in the Pokemon market. And
well, I don't think any of us in this space are getting famous on YouTube, but no, but I think it kind of brings up another point is like, I was kind of on the other side of that. I feel like I didn't go hard enough. And I think it kind of, it begs that question of, Steve talked about it beforehand of like taking risk when you're young. And, you know, people never really get rich by diversifying, right? Once you get money and once you are established, you preserve your wealth by diversifying, and it's a safety net. And that's kind of how you want to live in like retirement, or as you get older, you want to protect the nest egg that you've built up over your life. But when you're young is kind of the time to take those risks, and, you know, diversifying or not going, you know, all in on something, or not going as hard as you believe, especially if you believe in it. Those can be kind of your biggest regrets in life. And I mean, I know with me, I wish to death I would have went harder because, you know, I actually, you know, we all got lucky because of how big it got, but I actually did have the feelings of this stuff is going to continue to rise. I didn't know it was going to go as fast as it did or get to as high as it did, but I had that feeling. And, you know, me and a friend of mine, we'd have conversations about, hey, why don't we take some of these, you know, 0% for 18-month credit card offers and start just stacking this stuff away? And, you know, we make enough money, we'll pay it off before the 0% term's over. Like, why don't we start buying this stuff because we can see it's going up? And I never did it. You know, I just kept buying what I could afford. I kept traditional investing. I kept, you know, putting money where it needed to go. I played it really conservative. And it was one of those situations where if I didn't, I'd be way better off than I am now. And so I think a lot of times, especially in this community or investing in general, everyone frowns upon that. And they frown upon risk, and they talk about being safe and diversified. And that's great, you know, when you have a large amount of money, but when you're young and you don't have as much money, and you're, you know, and obviously amount of money is different for anyone, any stage of life. Like some people will say 10 grand is a lot of money, right? But, you know, I guess depending on where you are in your goals in life and your financial, you know, I guess ideals, there comes a time where it might make sense to take those risks. If you really believe in it, you see that path, it might make sense to buy, you know, GameStop when everyone's hyping it, right? It might make sense to buy Bitcoin back in the day when you believed in it. It makes sense to, you know, make some plays, because here's the thing. If you get it wrong, you lost what little bit of money you had. Whereas later on in life, if you get it wrong, you lose hundreds of thousands of dollars if you take that risk, and you can't afford it then. So I think there's definitely a balancing act of, you know, kind of age to risk ratio and where you put your money. So Steve, you were talking a little about that. Kind of give your, ideas on that. Kind of the plays you made, when you were younger. Like, because you said you got in like around the same time I did. So kind of give us like your mindset on how you were playing things back then to how you're kind of switching to over to now. What other kind of investments you're going in that are safer because now you have a family, a house, things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I started in 2015, it's like, well, I mean, he must have made a lot of money in Pokemon, but I mean, I was enlisted in the Marine Corps. So I had a good salary. I think I was making 17 grand a year. So, I didn't have a lot of cash, but that's when I started buying this stuff, and with the intent to sell it later on. Sealed Game Boy Advances, sealed WoW collectors, sealed Pokemon boxes, like just nerdy shit, right? Not just Pokemon, but just in that realm of sealed product. I just thought, after watching Rudy and his early videos and on Alpha Investments, which I'm sure everybody in the chat's familiar with him, I think his Credit Card Warrior video is what really got me like, okay, I'm doing this. But I mean, what really kickstarted me was while I was deployed, I was trading crypto. I would literally be on a patrol and be like, make $3,000-$4,000. And I was just right there in the peak of like what 2021 was for crypto and stocks and everything. But this happened in 2017 with Bitcoin when it first ran to 20K. And that was my first time. And I lost my ass. I made a lot of money. I grew like virtually no money to like 150K and lost 150K. So I lost all that money. But what that did for me was it desensitized me to serious amounts of cash at a younger age. Plus I was jumping out of airplanes. So like taking risk didn't scare me. Taking financial risk didn't seem too intimidating, I guess. But I think that early exposure to crypto and the volatility there and losing everything was a big deal. But I lost everything when I was living in barracks. So like I didn't have to worry about anything. Now, if I lost everything now, that's a different story. I have a house, I have a wife, So I think, yeah, take risks when you're young, and 30 is still like relatively young for the majority of people that are in this chat or around the age of 30. You can still be more risk on. But I would just caution you that maybe we're not in a risk-on environment. Right now, you can make 4% just sitting in cash, not buying a CD, but legit cash in a money market at Truist Bank. So if you're not banking with Truist, find a local Truist and go inquire about it. I guarantee you'll find the same thing I did. You can make 4% on your money in a checking account, a money market account right now. So we're not really in that risk-on environment, but I think we will be. So I'm watching the Fed, and when things get bad, when the economy has some crack showing, the Fed's going to have to go back to an easy money policy, and that'll be a risk-on environment. So that'll be kind of when I fire my engines back up. So that's a big reason why I've sold off the majority of my position, though. I think the opportunity cost of sitting in sealed product right now. I just think there's more opportunity elsewhere, but I still am exposed to pretty significant holdings in the nerdy stuff. But I just wanted more dry powder. So cash is not trash anymore, by the way.
Sorry, I was muted. No, but I have videos about this and I get blown up for it and I get attacked for this all the time. But it's funny how people question investing if it's not in stocks. And I still don't understand it to this day. It's like, if it's not stocks or real estate, it's almost seen as like a lesser investment. And it's like, how I see it is, if someone came to you today and said, I have $100, where do you think the best place to make money is? I don't care about anything else, about like, where do you think? And it's like, what we've seen is Pokemon's been a great play. Now, I mean, NFTs and crypto had its day, right? And real estate went absolutely crazy. But like right now, when I'm looking around and, real estate, it's still, doing well. Like it's not crashing like people thought. It's still steady. It's still having way more buyers than there is inventory. Still safe, I think, for now. Stock market, I mean, it's not crashing. I know a lot of people think there's dark times on the horizon, but as of right now, it's pretty steady. But if someone came to me right now and said, hey, I have $100, where can I put it? I don't have knowledge of like shoe market or like the watch market or other markets. So I would say, you know what? I think you're going to have the best bet of making money in Pokemon right now. Like I could honestly like say that with a clear conscience. Again, for everyone, not financial advice. But yeah. And so like, I don't know why it always has to be like, this, like, you know, traditional investments versus, you know, Pokemon investments. It's like the very essence of investing is the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. And so obviously, because the reward is so huge in Pokemon, obviously there's more risk. Like, it doesn't need to be said every single time. Obviously, it's safer to throw it in a diversified mutual fund where you're going to make an average of 8 to 12% a year. That's great. But for someone who doesn't have a lot of money and, like we were talking about, needs more substantial growth, they might, that may be too boring or too slow for them. They may, you know, maybe when they come back later on in their lives, if they have hundreds of thousands of dollars, it might make sense, or to slowly build it in a 401k. But to have, like, you know, free funds outside of retirement accounts asking where should you put it, sometimes it might make sense to take a more risky play. Or if, like, you do believe in a single stock or a company, like you could have believed in Tesla, you know, before the crazy run up, or if you have beliefs, maybe it is time to take that single stock play when you're young. And so I don't know why it always has to be, it's almost like the whole vintage versus modern investing thing. It's always got to be this traditional investments versus Pokemon. And I don't know why it has to be that way. It's either or, right? It's either or. It's whatever you feel more comfortable with, whatever kind of risk level you're comfortable with. But yeah, inherently investing in collectibles is going to be more risky. What does that mean? You're usually going to make a lot higher gains. And it doesn't mean the market's in a bubble. It doesn't mean people are being, you know, unrealistic or, you know, any of those things that people say. It just means that you're investing in a risky item. When things go right, you make higher gains. It's as simple as that. What do you guys think about on that topic? Am I crazy?
Orion, can I jump in first, and then I'm going to go grab another beer?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, my parents looked at me like I was crazy for years because I was I was storing stuff at their house. You know, I mean, it is weird, right? It's weird when you're spending a lot of money on something and you're leaving like stuff in your parents' house. I literally had it stored in my parents' house, my grandma's house, my in-laws' house, and my house. You know, it's just like there were just stockpiles. But that was a way. I mean, that's something else we can talk about later is you know, a little bit of physical damage and trying to mitigate, because insurance is not going to save you here. But that was kind of my reasoning for that. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely people look at you like you're weird when you say I have invested in Pokemon cards. It's weird. It is kind of weird, but that's, I mean, people who do weird shit and go against the grain often come out better than the majority of people who follow each other. So, but with that being said, I also think we should get into that later. I think some of this has become more mainstream. So I think that's one of those risks as well. And I'm not super bearish if anybody's just now joining. But I think that's something that we could talk about too. So I'm going to go grab a beer. I'll be back in 5.
All right, Steve. Pokemon is cool. Okay, Pokemon is cool now. Pokemon is mainstream now. And you know, I always said to my wife, I was like, you know, I don't know why I feel more comfortable buying now than I would have if I bought the same stuff I bought this year, last year, 5 years ago. Because you, like he said in the beginning, you want to know that your collection is actually worth something, and that if you did sell it at a certain point, or you needed to get that money out for something else that you need, you know, medical bills, a new house, whatever, anything that life throws at you, you want to know that it's there. I think not only was the COVID boom at the COVID time, everybody stuck in their house, not only, and then stimulus money, not only were people spending more money and they were stuck at home, and collecting was becoming more of a thing, streaming, YouTube, all that. But in that time, I think Pokemon's popularity got pretty much solidified. I think Pokemon isn't going anywhere. I think it's here to stay. I think a lot of people are going to be burnt out. I think a lot of people are going to be burnt out. A lot of people have dumped a lot of money in this, myself included, and they're looking to get out as quick as possible. My thing is to mitigate some of that spending by getting some of that money back in. You know, I can't imagine liquidating 6 figures worth, let alone me making like 14 grand selling theme decks over the last year and a half. Like, and even that was hard because I was letting my stuff go, but that was over a long period of time. I can't wrap my head around selling that much worth of product that fast. That'd be kind of crazy. And I think for a lot of people that's far down the line, so they're not thinking about it too much. I know I didn't.
Yeah. So B Purple Poker, he says that, yeah, I started as investing in 2020, but now I realize I'm actually a collector, and it just sucks that it's just all money and value. I like when people actually like the stuff they have. I mean, this hits home for me because I started out as just a collector, just buying stuff I remembered as a kid. And, you know, one thing would lead to another, and it'd be like you go down the rabbit hole on YouTube or on, YouTube too, but on eBay, and you'd find, oh yeah, these theme decks. Oh yeah, those packs. Oh yeah, those cards. And you just start buying, and you're just, you know, it's extra money. Things were cheap. And then when you finally realize it's an investment, and you start investing, you're flipping, and you're making money. It's so hard to go back to that. Like, you know, I find myself now, like, it's so hard to just go buy like a PSA 9 card. It'll be like $25, $30, $35. And it's an awesome card. I love the artwork. I want to have it in my collection. But then in the back of my brain, I'm thinking, yeah, but there's no way this is ever going up. Oh, the pop reports are this high, and you know, none of these things ever sell, and there's tons of them on the market. This is never going to move. Why would I buy this? And it's just like, it's so you have that battle. It's like, you know, it's like the devil and the angel on your shoulder having that battle back and forth about like enjoyment or money, you know, because, well, that $35 can be better spent somewhere else. But, you know, it's really hard to find that balance after you get into the investing side. So I know right where B Purple Poker is coming from and where you're coming from. It's everything in life's a balance, you know. I mean, obviously my channel is based around Pokemon investing, but everyone has different life circumstances, life events, different stages of their life. I mean, you know, I went through a part where I kind of like just backed away from the hobby and got back in. So, I mean, I get it, you know, and like we talked about, as you age, as you build a higher net worth, you want to put that in safer spots. You don't want to have to do as much work with the buying and selling and shipping. You know, that's one of the reasons why I do kind of like to periodically move out of my positions and take the gains when they reach certain levels, and you know, move them into other things. And that way it continuously cycles in and out. You're not selling everything at once where it gets overwhelming, and you're kind of just selling little by little, you know, every few months, as opposed to, you know, just kind of something snaps in your head and you finally listen to what everyone's saying or the news, or you get all freaked out and you sell everything. And then, you know, nothing happens and you think, why did I do that? And then you start buying everything back in, and you go through these big giant ups and downs, and it gets crazy. And so, yeah, that's what I always tell people, is just kind of always do everything with balance. You know, that's always going to be the key. And I think so.
I'm always worried that people are going to be like, oh, he sold off all of his stuff. That's not what a real collector would do. But it's like, life, you don't know what life's going to throw at you. And, you know, there's uncertainties about recession and economic health of this country. There's much bigger issues than Pokemon. But at the same time, there's that part of me that's like, you have to believe in something. And if you believe in yourself, doing a channel, collecting, if you believe you can start up a card business and make it more sustainable and balanced, like, I'm looking for a constant balance. But it's like you said, like, taking a step back periodically. I still did that too, whether I want to admit it or not. I took a huge step back and was just like, all right, I'm not deleting eBay. I'm still going to be putting stuff on my watch list, but I'm not putting anything on my bid list unless it is a really nice Pokemon Crystal version or a Pokemon Red first print, because I still need those, but I haven't bought them yet. Those are the ones I'm missing. But
and to anyone out there, like that whole true collector, I mean, I took some of that heat. To anyone out there who like ever says that to anyone, like, oh, you're not a true collector if this, or you don't really care about the cards or the products or the hobby, you've probably never been through a time where you literally bought cards and graded them when they were nothing. Like, they were worth like $30. And then because the boom happened, they became worth like 800 or 1,000. Or, you know, I mean, I can name multiple. I mean, I talked about like the Misty's Tears, making Misty card in Japanese. The Black Star promos 40 and 41, the Lucky Stadium Pokemon Center. Like, I got those when they were just nothing. I was just trying to complete the set, or I liked that Misty card. They blew up. Or I had the Southern Islands sealed
Love
binders in
that.
it. It went absolutely insane. I got it for like $100 and something back in the day, and now it's just like out of control. It's like and here, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to like talk about things I used to own, but until you go through like buying something as a collector and seeing it go up hundreds and thousands of %, you can't tell yourself that, oh, I would never sell it, because at a certain point, most everyone will sell. I just want to throw that out there.
There's this guy. I have to interject real quick. There's this guy that had a massive theme deck collection. He had the completed Wizards of the Coast collection. It was on eBay. He was asking like 100,000. I'm like, I know the Skyridge decks are super valuable. The Lava, the Legendary Collection decks are super valuable, like 2K, 2K type, value decks. But I'm like, I don't know if there's 100K in a completed WotC collection. And I reached out and I was like, if this ever sells, please let me know. Because it's an insane amount of money. But honestly, the work that you put in and bidding against people and staying up till 3 a.m. trying to win something, I mean, that's work. And you got to get paid for that at some point. So, I mean, I don't think it's just like dumb luck in the market, exploding at some point. When I think of TCGs, nothing really hits home the way Pokemon does. And you got to keep in mind, I'm a huge Yu-Gi-Oh fan too. I have a Yu-Gi-Oh collection too. So like, I like both of them, but Pokemon is, and Rudy said this. He said this in his video. He was like, Pokemon is the path of least resistance. He's like, y'all know, Black Lotus, I'm a Magic fan. That's what I love most. But I'm buying a lot of Pokemon product because it seems like the path of least resistance right now. I'll leave it at that.
Steve, you want to throw something in?
Yeah, it's the path of least resistance until Rudy decides to unload his warehouses on eBay. Watch out.
Well, no, then you'll get the people, the other group of people who say, oh, if that happened, I'd buy it all up at that price. Or if I would have been back when things were this cheap, I'd have bought it all. Right. A lot of us were there. You didn't buy it all. It's the same thing as now. Everything's relative. Like being back when base set boxes were like $800, $1,000 is the same as them being right now when they're $12,000, $13,000, $14,000, $15,000. Right? It's just the markets are just at different levels, but you still have the same things going through your head as, do I really want to put this much money into Pokemon product? And how long is it going to take to move? How liquid is it if I want to get my money out of it? How many people are actually buying this stuff? You go through the same exact conversations in your head when you buy anything now. It's just the price points have changed. That's it. One
of the really cool things that I find about just collecting and enjoying the collecting, like I do enjoy this stuff. I enjoy having like displays and looking at it. But I mean, really, I am more of an investor. So like I'm the evil guy. So I'll be that guy. It's fine.
It's cleaner.
But the cool thing about this market, what's that?
It's cleaner. It's more structured. Having that sealed collection in your garage piling up, it's very clean. It's very calculated. And I respect that. I really do. I think the whole thing with the display thing, it turned into this thing that I had to like complete. But like your method of collecting, I think is honestly something a lot of people are hopefully listening to on this live and can hear.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the selling process is like overwhelming, and it was overwhelming but exciting for me, and it was easier for me. So I can imagine that people who have large amounts of singles or things that aren't sealed, I mean, when something's sealed, it's more liquid. It is what it is. It might not be worth more, but I know everything's relative, but when something is sealed, it is more liquid. If you try and sell a Game Boy Advance that's open on eBay, you'll probably sell it to some dude in Pakistan who's going to take it apart and remanufacture it and sell it back on eBay. But if you sell a sealed one, you're going to you can move that immediately. So I know that's kind of
take that too.
What has helped you stay grounded during the huge growth in the hobby? I mean, to be honest, man, there was just a lot of other stuff going on that was like really exciting. I definitely went down some rabbit holes, and Pokemon was one of them. I mean, I went harder during the ramp up for sure. But I also was going hard in other things. I was really career focused. I really wanted to secure something that Alex and I had talked about this briefly before we went live. I think the best advice I could give for the guy who has $100 who's asking what I should buy, my advice would be go buy a bigger shovel. Like, you need to invest in yourself and be able to, you need to make more money. You need to have as high of an income as possible so you can really start deploying capital meaningfully. That would be my advice. I know it's harsh or not really what people want to hear, but it really is what you should do. The more money you can make through your day job, it's a day job. Like, even guys, Rudy's talked about it. We grind. Like, we have to grind for a certain amount of time. And the idea is that you have a side hustle going while you're doing your day job. And at some point, the side hustle can replace, when that number is outpacing your day job's number, that's when you know you've made it. That's when it's safe to say, like, okay, now I'm pursuing being an artist full time. But until, like, the people who say, like, oh, well, I want to go to school and be an artist. I'm like, dude, like, you're just chasing the passion too hard. You should focus on, like, if you had a stable job and then you were side hustling and selling art and doing art from like 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then selling it on Etsy, I respect the hell out of that. That's awesome. And then when that can replace your day job, that's when you're kicking ass. So if you can have, like, creating multiple streams of income is important. But now I'm derailed.
No, that's a great way to get into something. Orion, I'll get to you in a second, man. But I wanted to add to that. That's like a question that everyone has to ask themselves, is like, what you're trying to do in the hobby. Like, some people are literally just here to collect and they just want to, be able to get the best prices and not overspend on their collection. But, on the other side of things, are you wanting to, like, create a different income? Are you wanting to eventually replace your day job? Or are you wanting to just build an investment with the money you make at your day job? Because I think that's something that people really kind of get, like, they trick themselves with. They constantly think they need to, like, make money from this, when if Pokemon wasn't even a thing in your life, what would you be doing? You'd be, taking part of your income, putting it in a 401k or something else, and letting it grow over time and work for you, and it would be your investment. But for some reason, when you start getting into collectibles, I guess maybe because they're in front of you and they're tangible and you can touch them, you're constantly thinking of that, like, oh, well, I could flip this now and I could sell it here. I could do this. But you're never thinking, like, oh, well, I should go flip the mutual funds in my 401k and sit in cash until the market drops, and trying to trade your investments. And the same thing in Pokemon. It's like, are you just trying to supplement your investment strategy with money? You have a job, you enjoy your job, however much anyone can enjoy their job. You have a job that you're going to work for your life, and you're going to continue to take part of that income and invest in Pokemon, and that's going to help grow your net worth over time. Or are you trying to replace your day job? That's when you're going to get into, like, retrospects, or, Dan Ketchum Collectibles, he is full-time, or some other guys in the chat. Sorry, I'm not, names aren't coming to mind right away, but, like, people who literally are either doing this full-time, trying to get to full-time, and they are trying to, consistently buy and grade and buy collections and flip and make a consistent income to pay their bills with. And so I think that's a big question, is you have to decide for yourself exactly what are you trying to do in the hobby, and then what goals and what, like, direction you need to take to get there, because they are two completely different paths, right, on what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So I guess it's down to the individual, but I guess I just answer that question in final. It would be staying grounded is easy when you're focused on something else. So yeah, I was newly married during that run up, new career, and I was focused on that. So yeah, it was take the extra capital, deploy it into the stuff you're supposed to do first, and then excess capital was like, take risks here, play safe here. But yeah, if you're focused on one thing, and you have, so I put now I don't want to, like, downplay my involvement in this hobby as an investor. Like, I put thousands of hours into this. Like, I understand this market very well, to the point where, well, I don't want to get, like, super detailed on it, but I like the cool thing about the market is the depth. Like, the depth of this market is really shallow compared to something like anything that's in the traditional investing world. So, like, I had cornered the Ancient Mew PSA 10 I had like 1.5% of the total amount of PSA 10s of Ancient Muse. And that's cool. Like that's a pretty shallow market. So I would say, yeah, if you're focused on something else, you can stay grounded in something like Pokemon. But don't discount the fact that it still requires hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours of work to have a good plan to where it's then on autopilot. And you can just say like, this is the strategy. And if I don't really care about the ebbs and flows of the market because I believe that the overall trajectory is up, then you can just do your thing. And then on the side, you're still executing your plan.
So I think it's very important to note that for me, I'm representing that market coming in the last couple of years and how crazy it can get, how crazy those collectors can get, which means there's still a lot of room for new collectors to be coming in and building up their hobby. I think you guys being able to sell parts of your collection, but being in it for years before I got in it, I think that's just, there's going to be cycles of new people coming in. And I think in a couple of years, I could be having the same conversation, saying the same thing to other collectors in a couple of years that, you know, selling off your collection is a part of being calculated and making good investment choices. For me, we started the bar and it's only getting better and better. And my assumptions were if I'm making the same amount of money in the bar and I can eventually match that with YouTube, it'll still just be a side hustle. It's not gonna be my main thing because I am running a full-time business, and a lot of people have already come up to me, friends and family, and you know, called me and been like, dude, you guys have a full-time business running. Really not encourage this whole, you know, doing YouTube, opening up Pokemon cards. There's been a lot of backlash as far as that goes. You know, it's considered weird to the average person, and you know, that was probably the hardest thing for me to get past. But basically, I thought about when I was a little kid. I thought about when I was 8, 9 years old, and how I didn't want anybody, you know, in my middle school to know that I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon with my friends. I didn't want people to know that about me. That was unknown knowledge. Up to the point that I was like 18, 19, maybe even 20, I was still playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And still collecting some of that stuff, but didn't want anybody to know. I was definitely embarrassed about it. I wanted people to know that I had, you know, big boy aspirations, even though if I had continued, the whole if I had that, you know, everything is easier said in hindsight, right? But if I had just collected from that time and saved all those things I was collecting, you know, I just don't know. I don't know. You know, I don't know if I would have been able to take on that kind of risk. You know, so now I have a house, I have a place to keep everything. It's different now. It's not like I'm living in my parents' basement and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to spend all my money on Pokemon and keep it here. But I don't know. I think I might be going off on tangents. You can interject.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, one thing I'm interested in hearing from you is you basically were coming in the time I was selling out. And so, and you know, I think a lot of people that got in during that time got a bad taste in their mouth. And a lot of people like try to, you know, think that, oh, well, it was a lot of crypto money or it was a lot of, you know, XYZ money coming into Pokemon. So they had the money to lose, whatever it be. But it was a lot of people who were coming in. They were having the same, you know, things you were and I were and, you know, Steve were when we got in. We wanted to, you know, collect the things we wanted as a kid, and then it turned into investing. But a lot of people got in at those tops and saw massive losses, and it kind of destroyed their, you know, joy. It destroyed any hopes of doing this in the future for them. And so how was that for you? And how did you kind of maintain your cool, not let it discourage you, just keep collecting on the way down, like hold through it all? And now it's come back. I mean, what's your experience with all that, you know, kind of going through that, like emotional roller coaster?
Well, first off, the theme deck market is very strong. The theme deck market is still very strong. So like, I don't see any of those types of losses in my vintage theme deck collection. Like I didn't even want to sell any of my stuff, because I think there's a lot of room for that stuff to grow. I'm very confident in that stuff. Now, when you get into modern sealed product, different story. I'm a little bit worried in the short term. I have a case of Evolving Skies. I have one case. I have no worry about that set at all. That set's I've already doubled on that. I paid like $1,000 for a case of Evolving Skies just because of FOMO and thinking that maybe I'll open that up to get the Umbreon. Even though luckily I bought the Umbreon. That is where, when you're talking about high value modern singles, even vintage singles, that's where it gets kind of scary. At the pop of the market, I have 2 PSA 5 first edition Charizards. At the pop of the market, what was the PSA 5 going for?
I have no idea on those low grades.
I imagine it was potentially a $6,000, $6,500 card. Now I paid $4,000. Right now, that's where those cards are sitting at. But if that card were to drop to maybe $2,000 or $2,500, yeah, it would feel like a gut punch to my stomach. There are plenty of things that I can look to and compare to, and the market does not seem like it's dropping on any of those things. And even if it were, it would just be a learning lesson to me. I've lost 70% of my portfolio in the stock market, right? Of all the money I ever saved that I had originally in a savings that then went into the stock market in around 2019, 2020. All that money, 70% of it gone. It's like he's talking about he's jumping out of planes, he can stomach some risk. I've already had potential losses. It's only a real loss if you realize it. If you're going to ride out those, I'm going to ride out my portfolio until it, hits break even and beyond. I'm not going to sell for any losses ever. That's not what I'm going to do. But I think the same thing applies to Pokemon. If I can deal with, know when to just take a loss and move on, right? If you've got a stock, it's underperforming terribly, know when to take a loss and move on. If you bought in Pokemon in the pop and you lost a lot of money and you need that money, then you got to take it out. It is what it is. But if you don't need the money and you're young and you can take the risk, then you might as well continue with it. And so basically what I've stomached in the actual market, I'm basically doing in the card market. And
what you're saying is you just think everything is going to recover to the prices they were during the boom then?
Now, during the boom, I don't know. Depending on how high things got, I don't know if those prices will recover to there, anytime soon. I do think in 5-10 years, I think everything is cyclical. I think something's going to happen. Some pop star could do something. We could have another Logan Paul pop out wearing a diamond encrusted PSA 10 Charizard. Who knows what's going to happen? There are so many variables. But if something like that happened, great. If something good for the hobby happens, great. But even if it goes down.
So what about opportunity cost? So that's where I always think about in terms of taking losses. It's like you said, if you're in something and you've lost confidence in it, whatever fundamentals of that, whether it be a stock or an item, have changed. You kind of need to do a reevaluation and say, well, yeah, I still have X amount of dollars. I'm down 50%, but you kind of have to click restart and say, from right now, where is that X amount of dollars bet? Is it best to stay in there, or is it best to cut the losses, move it into something else that has a better opportunity to get my money back than waiting on this? So how do you make those decisions? Is that where the collector takes over? You want to hold it just to keep your collection, full, or where does the opportunity come in your mind?
I got to keep the collection full. I love this stuff way too much. I got to keep the collection full, but I am promising myself, my family, all right, from here, I'm working on liquidating a very, very small portion of it, seeing how that goes, building, a seller reputation, being somebody that people can trust, ship out cards and whatnot, and just small stuff, and build that hustle until I get really, really expert at the market, and can learn more. I learned everything from buying everything. That's how I learned everything. But really, you should study the market. You should put cards on your watch list. You should look into the sold listings. It's funny. I never did that before I bought anything. I just bid competitively on it, and it was stupid. But You know,
So what made you buy like what made you buy Evolving Skies at 1,000?
Say what? It just cut off.
I said, so like what made you buy Evolving Skies at 1,000? Just cause?
Well, Umbreon was at that point like $400, and I was like, I'm never gonna get this card. I'm not pulling this card. I can't afford this card. I eventually bought it for $550, like a boob, but I had to do it. I needed the card. I have to do it. It's a beautiful card. But what happened there was I just had the assumption, okay, if everybody thinks they're lucky and special, and everybody thinks they have a chance of pulling this $400, $500 card out of this box, then doesn't that by default make this box, in my head, my rationale was this box is now worth $500 to me. So now, and that's kind of, is that not like far from where it's at right now? 6 boxes. How much is a case of Evolving Skies? Do you have any?
It's over 2,000.
Okay. Well, okay. So somewhere around probably the high 200s or 300 a box. We're getting to that point where
they're at 400 a box. 400 a box right now.
Hey, can I jump in right there on that?
Yeah.
So that is actually huge. One thing that modern Pokemon hasn't had the time yet to be exposed to is the Gambler's Premium. So that exact thing, if that card stays at $2,000 for an extended period of time, I'm talking over the long term, you know, in 10 years from now, if Umbreon, if that card is still holding strong as like the shit, and as far as the chase
I feel like
card,
it will, honestly. I feel like it will. Okay, continue.
So if there's a card in a set that can command $2,000 in the open market, then well, there's always going to be somebody who's willing to gamble and take that bet that they're going to be able to buy a box for $400 and flip it, and they're going to get lucky and be able to sell it. There's not a single box of old school Magic that you can find that is worth the expected value in boxes from back in the day, like Homelands, 1994. You know, the set's 30 years old, and its expected value in the box, if you crack an entire booster box, is like $100. But you're going to pay over $1,000 on eBay for a sealed box. So, I mean, if individual modern cards command high prices down the road, then you're always going to have people that are willing to gamble. Always going to have it. Now, the question is, here's the thing. If you go look at pop reports, and I don't know what Umbreon's at, but I had an idea with the Celebrations Charizard. I just think the original art Charizard is...
Love that card.
I mean, it's so good. It's the card. It's going to be the most liquid single card, in my opinion, no matter what. Base set Charizards are always going to sell. Evolutions Charizards are always going to sell. And Celebrations are always going to sell. But look at the pop report on PSA 10 Charizards right now. It's like 18,000 PSA 10. 18,000. So, yeah, Rattle opening almost 4,000 packs to pull an Umbreon. Now... That's with the set
common knowledge to the community, not knowledge to everybody else, though.
Wait, say that again.
Common knowledge to the community. What this person's saying, I've been following Rattle and his expedition of evolving pack openings, and it's like, oh my God, this is pointing out how insane this pull rate is. And so, yes, common knowledge is like, who is paying $400 a box of Evolving Skies if they know these are the hit ratios? But yet, you know, I still paid $1,000 for that case because I believe that that's a product that could go up in value as much as that card. But $5,200, wow.
See, man, like that to me, that's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Like that shit's insane. Not. Now, that's crazy. Will it always be an expensive card? Probably. Like Ancient Mew, PSA 10 Ancient Mews. Now, this is 2000. So you're talking a 23-year-old card that literally every single one of us had at least a copy of. I mean, it was the coolest card of all time. We all went to the movie. We all got the card. But that card in a PSA 10 only has like 5,200 PSA 10s. And it's a 23-year-old card. So you can expect reasonably that there's not going to be a huge influx of PSA 10s coming to the market. Are there still going to be 10s? For sure. But think about how many boxes of Evolving Skies are sitting in closets right now. I can tell you I sold a shit ton of them. So there's going to be a lot more Moonbryons coming to the market, and they're going to be perfect condition because the print quality is better nowadays than it used to be. That does concern me long term, but again, if you go sealed, you're in a safer position, because there's always going to be people that are willing to open a sealed box, and you can only go one way with sealed. Once you crack that seal, man, it's over. And that's what I thought. That was the niche that I thought I exploited like 5 years ago with the WoW collector editions. Is there's an in-game code inside the box. So not only is it cool that you have like this old school game sealed, but you actually have something that people can open the box and scratch the code off and then redeem it for an in-game mount. So you had like that idea, and you would see the mount in the game and you'd be like, damn, dude, that's sick. But that guy paid like $500 for that. That's kind of gay. So there was that thing going too. So I like the sealed. You can go sealed to singles, but you can't go back, right? So, and I think that's across the board. Exactly. Spectral Tiger, this guy knows.
And not to like, you know, do the whole vintage versus modern debate here, but I mean, what do you think all of these recent sales say for the hobby though, of the shift? Like, you know, the team up, right? That Latios alt art, it's going for like $2,000 plus now as a PSA 10. You got Moonbryon $2,000. I mean, you have people spending large amounts of money, and I mean, I'm seeing first edition base set cards. Like, I mean, Nidoking, which when I was following, it just ended at like $707 as a PSA 9 first edition base set. I mean, you have like all the PSA 9. I mean, the 10s are still holding up. But you have a lot of all these like super rare vintage cards going for like the same prices. Like you have PSA 10 Jungle and Fossil and other, you know, WotC era cards in 10s going for what these modern 10s are going for. I mean, pop reports aside, like, I mean, what do you think that says to the hobby as far as like popularity, as far as the shift goes, as far as like the mindset of people, like, I guess the perception of value to people? I mean, because obviously it's not the pop reports at this point. I mean, anyone like us who pays attention to that stuff, who's like, you know, dedicated investors and actually looks at the fundamentals. But do you think it's all just hype and FOMO, or do you think it's just we're at a point where the demand has shifted so much that there's just so much more demand than there ever was for those cards, and that's propping the prices up? Do you think we're going to have a crash like you're saying? I mean, what do you think the shift has done to the hobby?
So I think that we have more people in this hobby than we've ever had before, period. You are going to have higher premiums for the modern stuff than you've ever had before, period. And while I would rather have a briefcase of base set Charizards, there are plenty of people out there that inversely would rather have a briefcase of that Umbreon and consider that. I mean, it's all, you know, opinion based, right? It's all subjective. You know, other than you've got grading, which, you know, the 9 versus the 10, you've got that massive jump from that price. And I think if people have 10s, even in modern where those pops are going to increase and increase, I think they'll be fine. But I do want to say one thing. As much as I have my opinions on what's going to happen, here's what I think is probably one of the best things you can do, which you guys sound like you're already doing it. But a friend of mine had this incredible, just absolutely incredible completed Skyridge set. And Skyridge is the last Wizards of the Coast set. It's very pricey right now. I just saw like a PSA 9 Gengar go for like $1,100, which if the modern cards are more, great, because I'm still more into the vintage. I want that stuff more. It's a preference thing. But what he told me was kind of like what you're saying about, you know, I sold a lot of those Evolving Skies. There's going to be more of those. He was like, bro, I had one of the highest, you know, registry sets for Skyridge and the highest grades. But once, you know, 2020, 2021, the boom happened. All my cards values just got demolished, got destroyed. And he was like, I had to liquidate all of my WotC era cards. I love that stuff, and I love to go back and collect it for my own collection. But as far as an investment, I lost my ass on that when Pokemon blew up, because everybody, streamers, YouTubers, everyone's watching PokeRev, everyone's watching Cool Train Orion, everyone's wanting to rip open product. that is how people were doing a majority of their content. So stuff's getting opened up. So boom, there's more cards on the market. Everyone knows Pokemon's worth something. Those prices plummeted. Now that same person is buying modern sealed product and has been buying it like 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, they sold off their mint Skyridge collection and they put all that money into modern sealed. And they've been flipping modern sealed as prices have fluctuated. Now, is that worth it in the short term for 20, 30, 40, 50% with the eBay fees and shipping stuff out and the time that takes? I don't really know. But for them, that was a better return and that was safer and that worked so much better than trying to have the, nicest, lowest pop reports for high-end vintage cards. So it's like in that argument, it was apparent to me that like modern sealed is going to trump your vintage gains any day. If you're just a collector and you want to collect your vintage, then collect your vintage. There are always exceptions to the rule. With everything, there's an exception to the rule. But I just think modern sealed has got nowhere to go but up. And that may sound uninformed and unintelligent, but that's what I honestly think is going to happen. And it just depends what Scarlet and Violet is going to. It really matters what Pokemon is going to do with these sets moving forward. How Paldea Evolved, that's starting to get leaked. The Heracross looks pretty cool. The Tyranitar looks pretty cool. Nothing that I'm crazy about, but like I don't know. As long as they give us 1 or 2 banger sets throughout this year, Pokemon could really build on that hype. We're gonna find out. I know everyone in the Pokemon YouTube community has felt the ripples of kind of the hobby slowing down. PokeVault was talking about, made a meme video, the crisis management video, where all the YouTubers' views are down, and it was very comical. But it was also insightful because it was like, yeah, I think we all kind of feel that like it's simmering down a little bit, and you may like that for collecting purposes. I know it'll be interesting for me. I'm super excited to see prices of everything, just because it's a long-term game. And that's all I'm going to say. But sealed modern is a great long-term bet, I think.
Hey, Steve, so I'm going to let you respond to that, but also address this because Beeper Will Poker said it a few times. Like, their buyouts. Moonbryon was bought out. Oh. Latios was bought out. So,
no, this guy is dead on. So that's what I was saying about the depth of the market. There is no market depth. If you have tens of millions of dollars and you want to come in here and you want all of something, it's yours. It's yours. Like the market depth is not there. So it just creates opportunity for some, but it can also create massive market manipulation. So you have to be really careful.
Absolutely.
You have to be careful when you dabble with this stuff. If you start thinking you're going to get cute and buy like, I don't know, what's like, let's say.
I'm not cute already.
Oh, you're gorgeous. Let's say you're going to try and let's say you're targeting, I don't know, something with like I don't know something off the top of my head, but something modest and like a PSA 9 from the vintage era, like a PSA 9 Mewtwo base set. I don't know how many there are, but let's say there's 1,000 of them. You say, well, I'm gonna do a buyout. You'll probably get hosed. You'll probably get crushed because there are people out there who have deep pockets, and they can own that entire market for $1 million. It's theirs. And I know $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money for guys like Gary V. And Gary V was buying the shit out of graded Pokemon cards. Who knows what this man has? And there's a lot of guys like that don't have notoriety on public. They're not on social media.
They're not known about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
buyouts are huge.
I mean, Steve, I think there is so many people like you, like that don't have social media. They don't get involved in the YouTube. They don't get on forums or brag about their stuff on Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who just collected. I mean, I never did any of that. I was a member of U4 because I gained a lot of knowledge from just, getting on there and reading the threads and learning so much. And I would go like look it up for myself and I'd come up with a whole depth of knowledge from it. But I was never a person who went to events. I still haven't really gone to events, which I'm determined to get to some of these Collecticons this year.
Dude, Collecticon.
Yeah, but I've never went to events. I wasn't really involved in any like face-to-face community. Obviously, no YouTube, Instagram. Like I didn't have I really don't even use Instagram more than just like messaging, people privately to set stuff like this up. But I don't really post pictures to Instagram anymore. I never had a personal one. And there's a lot of people like me, like you are, like that are out there that you'll never know about. And they have 6-figure, some 7-figure positions in this hobby. And so I think that's a net positive. I mean, there are people out there that are spending large amounts of money just because you don't see them, just because it's not talked about online.
It's a net positive, right? That there's that much interest, but the problem comes if you try and beat these guys. You're not going to beat these guys at that game unless you've been in the game since, S.M. Pratt days. Like if S.M. Pratt said, you know what, like what if he just met this chick and she's like, dude, let's just be done. And somehow she changes his mind on Pokemon. And he's like, let's do it, dude. Let's go buy a Southern Island. Let's sell all this stuff and go buy our own. And
that's a bad chick.
Dude, it might have to be. But if it happened, and he's just one guy, but he's probably got an 8-figure collection. I would say easily an 8-figure collection. He's got, $4 million in one card. So if he did have, 25 first edition PSA 9 Charizards, that's like 2 months of eBay liquidity tied up right there if he decided to dump. So there's just not a lot of depth in the market, and buyouts are a thing. But to caveat off that and go back to like the positive side, within 1 week, I had a plumber come to the house and replace some fixtures, and his son, he saw all my shit here. And he was like, dude, my son is all into this stuff. And I was kind of embarrassed because I'm like, yeah, I'm a grown ass man. I am too. But it was like it's cool because his son's like 5 or 6 years old. And then in the same week, we were at a restaurant and we're sitting outside eating burgers. And this kid next to me had his Pokemon cards on the table. So like there's like normal interest that we had when we were that age in modern. So that's cool. And those kids in 20 years are going to be in our shoes. So I think modern will be a good thing. I mean, I think investing in modern is a solid move, but it's
so kind of go back to that. Do you think as people just mature and get, care more about the fundamentals of investing, like, do you think everyone's going to come to the place that, a lot of us are at with like really diving into the pop reports and assessing value based on that? Or do you think it's going to get just washed out and people aren't going to care as much? I mean, I go back and forth in this in my own head. I mean, do you think there's enough just raw, kind of like Orion, like just buys things because he likes it and buys them and wants it in his collection? I mean, do you think there's enough of that out there? I mean, do you think enough people are looking at the Moonbrion and saying, well, there's 5,000, it should only be worth X amount because of that? Or do you think they're just saying, well, I really want that card. That's what everyone's selling them at. That's what I got to buy it at. And I mean, where do you think that ends? Where do you think that ends?
It's a really good question. I mean, because the kids that are in it now organically are not putting their cards in sleeves, just like we weren't. They're shoving their cards in their cargo pocket of their, and then walking around the playground, and those cards are getting destroyed. The difference is this go around, and it happened a little bit back in the day, but the difference now is there's a huge community you can just look at the pop reports. There's people that are already doing it. So you have to say, is there enough? Maybe there's enough. Let's say the player base is 5 times what it was back in 2000 when we were kids. Well, then maybe that offsets that pop report. Maybe that pop report's actually like perfectly ratioed to what the vintage stuff is to today. I don't know. It's a good question.
That's a really good point, honestly. It's all my dad always says this. It's all relative, right?
100%. Everything's relative. It's like $100,000 to somebody's crazy, but $100,000 to Warren Buffett, that's like me buying a Chick-fil-A biscuit in the morning. Percentage-wise, it's the same thing for him, right? He could go drop $100,000, and percentage-wise, that's the same amount of, actually probably more than that. $1 million is probably a Chick-fil-A biscuit for me. So yeah, it's all relative for sure.
Hey, anyone who wants us to take any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll try to hit a few of them. If you guys anything you want answered by any one of us, you can feel free to call any one of us out or all of us, whatever you want to do. I don't know how you guys feeling. You having a good time? Keep it going for a little while.
Yeah, man. No, this is great. I'm glad you invited me on. This is cool. So hopefully I haven't seen anybody ripping me a new one either, which is surprising. I thought I was going to get destroyed. I'm not a YouTuber or social media guy.
Yeah, I should have warned you more for that. You just kind of got to be ready for it. I mean, I don't know. People are crazy. I mean, a lot of people take it a little harder than some. I mean, I don't take anything too serious on here, but honestly, man, just anything anyone says in the chat, don't take it too serious. I'm sure they wouldn't say it to you in real life.
Hey,
I haven't even looked at the chat for that reason. My wife's like looking at me and she's like, so it is what it is. It's YouTube. Yeah, I had a great time chopping it up. I mean, you have all these things inside your head all the time. You can't bounce them off your mom, dad. They don't want to listen to it. You definitely can't bounce it off your spouse 24/7. She's not going to want to listen to it. So it's nice to have people in the community that can talk about this stuff and have an extended conversation.
To Matt Collectibles, we actually talked about this before the stream. Steve does not have social media, like not for just his card channel. He says he doesn't have social media in general. So,
we can't find Steve on the Facebook.
I can share your eBay store, and then he does have a YouTube, but he just has that one video he posted that he sent me, and that's how I met him. So, yeah, sorry, Matt, I couldn't. Steve, is there any other way you can help this guy out?
No, man, that's it. I made that one video just reaching out to Alex. But no, I'm not into it. I actually work at a company they're like, man, like since you're in a sales role, you really need to have some social media. And I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I'm just not like, I don't want a company social media or anything. It's just not, I don't really enjoy it. I think it's all kind of a flex. But I just don't really enjoy my time. I don't really enjoy spending my time on social media. For you guys, it makes total sense. You guys are pushing your brand, and it's you guys are getting the good word out there for people. And I consume a shit ton of YouTube content, which is social media. So I'm not like totally in the dark on that. But no, as far as personal,
no, man, no, I'm the worst about it. Like, this is all I have. I mean, I made an Instagram and a TikTok. I never posted a single TikTok. I started to post things on Instagram for a while, but then stopped. Like, I'm not a good social media guy either. I barely have Discord figured out. I mean, this is kind of the only thing I do for the channel. I mean, I should do a lot more to grow the channel and grow my presence, but I'm the same way with you. I try not to waste too much time on social media. Orion, you can kind of piggyback on that and then take that question. What is your strat for making money?
I'll get Forever to be there on that very tough question to answer. Yeah, I had social media at a very young age. I was bullied really, really hard. So I basically took it upon myself. Once I got into high school, I was like, I'm going to make really good friends with everybody. I'm going to try and, talk to as many people as possible, try and network as much as possible. And I think that carried over nicely because it kind of went into Instagram, and now I'm doing YouTube. And I do think the social media stuff does really help with branding. It also gives people, a chance to see into your personal life. My Instagram doesn't have anything Pokemon other than the fact that I say that I'm a Pokemaniac and I have my YouTube linked. There's not really, I'll occasionally put a story up of a card I found or a collection I'm buying or like a video or a subscriber milestone, because I'm really stoked that I've grown the YouTube to where it is in the past year. I'm really happy about that. But as far as making money, I feel like I've just gotten really lucky. Like, I just started selling theme decks because I bought so many of them. I was like, you have 4 or 5 of these theme decks. You have to let these go at some point. And I imagine Steve did the same thing with buying cases. He just bought so much stuff. He had duplicates of stuff, maybe in his case, 5, 10 cases, 15 cases of something. I don't know. A 6-figure collection to liquidate that in a month, 2 months, that's some insane stuff. I mean, I could probably do that, but it would probably be done over like a half a year or a year maybe. And that would be liquidating everything, which I do not want to do. But in terms of my strategy for making money, there's a lot of people that are like, you can flip these cards. There's people that are opening cases and then getting all of their alternate arts graded, getting all of those high dollar cards graded. I know that would be hard for me to like pull a card I really want and then get it graded and then try and sell it. I don't want to go through all that. So keep your modern stuff sealed. You know, on my channel, I try not to open a lot of stuff. We did a live stream the other night. I opened 5 packs of Scarlet Violet. I was like, and then I opened a Fusion and an Evolving, and that was that. And I was like, all right, guys, that's that. I'm not going off the deep end tonight. So buy your modern sealed and sell off your duplicates. You know, you don't need all that stuff. Sell your duplicate stuff off.
So Wolfhawk, I'm planning on opening LGS in Maui. You're already winning because you live there. Any advice? I'm still trying to figure out how to get the best deal on sealed product wholesale. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of distribution is like to Hawaii, but yeah, I mean, basically, like obviously not business advice, not tax advice, not anything like that. But what you really need to do, you need to get an LLC formed. You need to get all your right documents in place for whatever kind of laws Hawaii has with sales tax, number you're going to have to get set up. Obviously, you want to get a reseller's permit and just get all those documents. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go and apply for any distributors that cover Hawaii. You're going to reach out to them, give them your tax ID number, give them, your credentials, and hope they take you, because right now I think it's still so hard to get distribution. But that's kind of how it works. You just have to, get all your business, started the right way, and then start reaching out to distributors and seeing if they'll take you on. And unfortunately, they usually start you out on not a lot of product, from what I've heard from other people that have started businesses. And so, a lot of people even buy on the secondary market or buy from other people, other store owners they know at a slight, margin, just to get product from the stores to start out. It's not an easy road in the beginning. I'll just give you that much. Question for all: sell your prize cards for massive profit or keep them long term? I tried keeping mine and ended up selling them. So I've been through both. I think the easiest way, before you guys give your opinions, I think the easiest way is to almost buy for your collection cards or at grades that aren't really that investable. And so kind of like I was talking about the PSA 9 situation, it's like if you see cards going for $10, $15 in near mint great condition, and the PSA 9 selling for 25 or 30, and you're like, well, after grading fees, shipping, all that stuff, it's going to be as much or more, and you see a bunch of supply in the market, it's probably not, and you want it in your collection, just buy it, buy the 9. You're not going to be tempted to sell it, because odds are it's probably not going to go from $25 to $300. It might raise over time, with just natural, attrition from the market and natural, scarcity. But, that's what I would say. I mean, I think anyone who isn't wealthy, if you see a large enough gain, like we talked about before, usually you're going to take it. It's not the easiest thing to do. What do you guys think about that? Steve?
I'll let Steve go first.
Sell it. 100%. I mean, it's up to you, man. It's up to you. It's up to your, it depends on so many things. But I would right now, personally, I would say I would sell it in the position I'm in, but it totally depends. Like, are you sitting on $1 million worth of real estate that's cash flowing you $7,000 a month? Or are you sitting on a shit ton of money in the stock market already that's paying dividends? Or is this like the majority of your net worth is tied up in this one card? If it just depends where you're at, man. I would just say it depends. But I certainly wouldn't, if that one card is literally any more than 10% of your net worth, then I would say it might be in your best interest, and your family's best interest to move that to something else,
So you're saying if one card is 10% of your entire net worth? Yeah, I'd probably consider strongly selling that card.
I was thinking a prize card, like, damn, bro, this is the card. But yeah, I have no idea. If you're talking like a $200 or $300 card and you just love the card and it's not really financially a big deal, then just keep it. I mean, it just depends, man. I don't know. Give us some specifics and we can give you some specifics, I guess.
For me, it's the first edition Charizards, the thick and thin stamp 5s that I have. I've wanted that card for so long, and by so long, pretty much 3 years, not really that long. But I kept losing bids on it. I could not get my hands on that card to save my life. It felt like I kept getting sniped, and that I wasn't meant to have it. People scoffed at my offers, and then eventually I won them for what I wanted, which was $4,000 a card. Even if I could get $6,000 a card right now, I would not sell those cards. They mean way too much to me. I love Charizard. I'm definitely a sucker for Charizard. Honestly, at the end of the day, if I were to idealize my collection, it would be a briefcase of Charizards. But that's super boring. So here we are. I will say $100,000 in the collection that I have in theory, hypothetically, if I have $100,000 collection, if that was in a bank account and I'm getting 4% and that's broken up over the year, that's $4,000 divided by 12. All right. So you're sitting at what, 400 or 350 a month or 300 a month, something like that. That interest you're getting from that money sitting alone can buy you your sealed collection that you can sit on. It can start to buy you, you can buy, 1 or 2 booster boxes and put those away and be like, I spent no money basically to get those. That money made me money to afford those and put them in my closet. And I think you can win on both fronts. You're talking about, earlier getting that good job to pay off, so that, and then maybe getting a side hobby and working on that, that's in the ideal world. Absolutely. For me, I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm going all in on Pokemon. Now I'm good. I'm happy where I'm at. And I'm going to start letting money stack up and I'm going to start putting it away and let it just sit in a bank, money market, get 4%, and then try and build on that as aggressively as possible, both for myself and for my family. But for like those single cards, that's the card that I would keep. Your most prized card, if you really love it, keep it, sell everything else, but that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to kind of add to like, if it's a card in like, maybe like early Sun and Moon or even a Sun and Moon XY, that might be more of a hold. If it's like a card out of a brand new set, like if it's a Scarlet Violet or like a Silver Tempest Crown Zenith card, you pull out a pack graded a 10. Usually, not all the time, there's some brand situations. Usually it makes sense to take those gains because there's probably going to be a situation in the near future where you can buy that card a lot cheaper. That's the only thing I'm going to add to that part is, when it's right out of the gate, a lot of the times it makes sense to kind of capitalize for the market drops and supply reaches. But
I feel like I've had such a hard time pulling cards the past couple of years that like, if I even got lucky enough to pull an amazing alt art like that and get it graded and get a high grade, it would be so hard for me to let go. It'd be so hard.
All right, so this doesn't have to take a lot of time, but bottoms for sealed booster boxes were typically 80 to 90 pre-price increases. With the new prices, where would you consider bottom levels for sealed booster boxes now? So I talked to a few people that have distribution. They're pretty in like the mid 90s, like we'll say $95 is what distributors are charging like smaller mid-sized stores now. The big guys, like the guys you see on eBay, they're probably getting them in like maybe high 80s, low 90s, probably high 80s if I would had to guess. But so if most stores are getting them in the mid 90s, I'm gonna guess the bottom's gonna be in the mid hundreds, like 105. Like I could see maybe, or that's where I would guess. Like I could see people blowing out cases if they really started going bad. I could see them blowing out cases for $600 and just barely getting out, or maybe taking a small loss or breaking even just to move product and free up capital. But yeah, that's what I would say. I'd probably be looking for buys in like that mid hundreds range if you're trying to buy the market. What do you guys think?
108.
All right, 108.
MSRP at 160. Like, come on, Pokemon. Like, it's already just they've artificially, forcefully made it jump on its own accord, and that's not entirely following with the market. People are like, no, I'm paying 108 on this. 110, 120 max. I'm not paying $160, but eventually that will get bought up and people will be left with whatever is on the market that will compete with Pokemon pricing, which will be $160. It's going to be crazy to watch it.
What do you think, Steve, on the modern?
I think it's got a floor. And I can't give you an exact number on it, but that 108 number is probably pretty good, assuming things stay relatively normal. But if you look at my Sun and Moon Crimson Invasion, we go back to towards the beginning of the stream, I brought up that I was buying that in 2020 for like $65 a box. Oof. So it can go below MSRP if it's a shit set over time and needs to be offloaded by a distributor who's got 4 pallets. It can go lower, but I would say like 108's in a normal without anything weird going on or without it being a total flop, then I think that's, it's definitely got a floor of somewhere around there, I would guess.
Yeah, and obviously Primal Clash and Roaring Skies are notorious for that too. I think they got down to 69 or at least low 70s at one point. I've heard people tell me 69, but I saw them, remember, at like 75, 77 a box. So it happens. It's just very rare. You know, it was like a big reprint no one's ever seen before like that in the hobby at that point. So weird things can happen. But so like Michael Duck asked me to talk about One Piece, but then this other guy, Crinkle McWrinkle, anything else. So I thought Michael Duck and that question kind of go together. So first, I guess you guys go first. I mean, you guys, Steve, you collecting or investing in anything else besides Pokemon as far as like collectibles?
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I probably can't show guns on YouTube, but I have, I like fine shotguns, gold, silver. Yeah, I mean, I'm a collector and other things too.
Okay. Orion, you just Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh?
A little. It feels like a little bit of everything like him. I'm more into jewelry more so than actually the gold bars. Like bullion, bullion, however it's pronounced. My dad's more traditional in that sense. I like stuff that I can enjoy, that I can wear, that I can use. Pokemon cards don't really fall in that category, but I also just think it's a very safe, not protected physically, but protected investment in the sense that when I drive my car, the tires get worn out. Something smacks my front bumper and puts a hole through the front bumper. I got to pay for that. Inspection, insurance, all that stuff. There's all these other costs. I like sneakers because I can wear them. Style is a big part of my life. My sister went to school for fashion, so that's a big part of my life. And then I saw my parents really raise us and never do anything for themselves. And I didn't want to be that way. I wanted to, have a nice sports car when I'm young and not wait till I'm 70 years old. I mean, my dad's right about to be 70 and he got a Corvette 63. And I'm like, it's hard for me to imagine waiting that long till I'm going to get something like that. I'd rather buy them now, take care of them now, be able to enjoy them while I'm young. And then maybe later down the road, they can appreciate, or I could sell them. My cars have definitely appreciated too. The car market this year was absolutely absurd, but we're not going to get into that. Watches, cars, sneakers. I like guns too, but it feels weird talking about that on YouTube in general. I know that definitely makes some people feel weird. I don't know if you watched Moist Critical's thing with Sneeko. It was like YouTube drama, and they were talking about guns, and it was freaking people out. So,
yeah, I'm not the sensitive channel on YouTube. Anything goes here, man. I don't know why I would freak anyone out, But hey, to each their own. I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah, I mean, we've come to a place where we can't talk about guns. That's something's got to give eventually.
Yeah.
Question: best way to make $1,000 with $5? That has got to be Dogecoin. Dogecoin all the way. Not financial advice, but definitely somewhere near financial advice.
Very risky options.
Let's see. D just23. Do you think modern will outperform vintage in the next 10 years? It's such a widespread question. Do I think modern sealed is going to outperform like vintage sealed, vintage slabs?
I think that's actually a really easy question to answer that really shouldn't even be, even though it is a massive source of debate. I don't think it really should be. It's really simple. Modern is very easy to invest in and buy because you can just buy some of every set that comes out and ride that wave. If you go the vintage route, you have to know what you're doing. You've got to spend a lot of time in the market, and you can still get it wrong. But if you just buy sealed booster boxes on release, I think that's going to generally outperform because some guys are going to buy the right card in vintage and do a 10x, but then some guys are going to buy the wrong one and sit at the same, it's going to be worth the same thing they bought it for. So that's what I would say.
Like he's saying, I was that guy for a lot of vintage cards I would buy, and it would just be like, yo, this says mint, this has a crease in it, now I'm screwed. This is not going to work. I think really it is a pretty easy question to answer, and it might not be what everybody wants to hear, but myself included, because I want to feel like my first edition base set complete is like the holy grail. But the reality is that if I would have put the money completing my first edition base set, if I would have just put that and sealed collectibles, I probably already had doubled the money. So yes, it's going to outperform vintage, I think.
And I just remember, I never answered that other question for them. Yeah, I mean, I collect a bunch of other things, and I think the keywords collect. Like, I have binder collections of Star Wars cards, of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like the first sets. I never got into like anything after like the show ended. So like just the first like
the show
7 sets. Yeah, like the 7 sets. Those are the ones that I have as binder sets. I've been opening Dragon Ball Super, but I don't really collect it. I just kind of open it for fun. Sometimes I'll pull a hit, like when I want to open something because it's cheaper than other things to open. Nothing else like I majorly invest in besides Pokemon. I mean, I know One Piece. I have like those boxes. Basically, the reason I started buying like a case of every One Piece set is I was at my local card shop one day, and they were telling me, they said, "Hey, listen, I'm just going to tell you." Because we talk, about, because they know I invest in stuff. They go, I'm just going to tell you that we have Yu-Gi-Oh, we have Dragon Ball, we have Pokemon, we have Magic. And when we have One Piece now, we have like 35, 40 players, and the other games get about 15 players. And it's like over doubling the amount of interest right now. And so when he told me that, that's when I moved in that first set and made that video. And now I'm just kind of just following suit. I'm just, buying one of each case. Will it work out? I don't know. It's just like a speculative thing. Like, hey, if One Piece ends up becoming a big card game, it's going to be nice to hold all these original sets. Now, will they print it into the ground? They already just did a reprint. It's dropping the prices. That could happen too. It's not something I invest in seriously. It's just something that, hey, every time a set's released, I'm going to buy a case and see what happens type thing. That's all One Piece is to me. I'm not like a diehard fan of it. I'm not like a super big believer, like saying, hey, FOMO into One Piece. It's just something, that I saw opportunity in because I'm just trying to take advice from, people who see the play and the purchases every day. And it made sense to me. That was kind of it. Let's see.
I kind of felt that way about Digimon. The Digimon Classic collection boxes. I bought a couple of those because I was just like, the art on this box, I don't know, it feels right. Anyways.
Yeah, I hear it. Yeah, Digimon's another thing. Not sure if it was answered yet. What was one of your favorite pieces in each of your collections? I mean, for me, it's just kind of a basic type thing. It was my base set booster box. I mean, my wife, my buddy, I did all my investing collecting with. They could have both told you when I eventually bought that. I said I was never going to sell it. This is going to be with me my entire life. It went in my safe. I bring it out every now and then, but I plan on having that forever. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Everyone's got a price, and that's what happened with that. It got to a certain price, and I had to let it go.
Oh, so you let the base set unlimited box go?
I let all my boxes go. I had every box through Gym Challenge.
Oh,
Damn.
bro.
Yeah.
Bro,
I don't regret it. They're all still lower than where I sold them. I sold them on the way down, so
cool.
They peaked, and I sold them on the way down. But they were still really high when I sold. They were, all in the 5 figures.
Bro, I'm one of those people coming into the hobby and like really looking at that vintage steel product, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna get my hands on a base unlimited sealed box. I have the box. It's got the original wrap on it, 17 packs from the original owners. But like, I didn't want that, but they didn't want the price for it sealed, so they wanted to open it up and let everything be auctioned off. But man, that's God. And I'm sure you paid a lot less than I'm considering paying for a box like that.
Paid $2,000.
Ooh! Well, it's a great investment. You did well on that, letting it go, recently. It's a great investment. I can't knock that at all, but just the price paid on that alone is just insane to me. Because I'm coming into the hobby and I'm like $2,000. Like that's the most insane, ridiculous deal you could ever get on something like that. You know,
and back then it was like a yeah, and back then it was like, I don't know, like this is a lot of money to put into something, because at that point I was still in my flipping phase. Like I bought that box with profits from flips, so I was still buying lots, buying collections, grading cards, flipping. Like I was still in the money making phase, and so to put $2,000 into something that's, you know, it was still new, it wasn't the established market we know now. It's put that into a product and just put it in the safe and know that $2,000 is locked up. It wasn't easy back then. Like it sounds crazy now, but it'd be like buying like a, you know, Evolving Skies box right now. What if that box goes to like $4,000? Like, not saying it will. What if it does? Like then you're gonna be looking at that saying, "Oh man, when that was 400, I would have been buying all those out." Well, no, you wouldn't, because here we are right now. Are you buying all of them out? No. You know, everything's relative. Like we said earlier, it's all relative. What about you guys? What are your favorite pieces that you either still own or have owned?
I'll go first because I've got mine right here. But yeah, I like these a lot. These are cool. I do like vintage cards.
Got the 9, nice.
Yeah, I've got a few of these and I like them. So that's probably like I'm still not married to it. I would still sell it, but like I view that more, I guess, as a collection, but also like a diversification piece. Like I don't expect that card to outperform and get some crazy return. But I also think like that card is always going to command close to what I think it's worth. I don't think there's going to be major market movements on that card. So I think more of that. That's almost like a kind of like a bond. You know, it's like a fixed income investment. It doesn't pay a dividend, but it's just going to be very slow and boring. So I like that as far as just like what I really like.
Right.
PSA 9 first edition Lugia. That's like, do you know what that's worth right now? Is that a $4,000 or $5,000 card more?
No, it's less than that. They're actually really reasonable. They're like right now. Last I looked, they were around 2,800 or so. And if you catch a bid, yeah, I mean, but dude, okay. So here's somebody mentioned this. I'd like to derail this for just 2 minutes. But somebody asked like an hour ago, or said an hour ago, that PSA populations reports are not accurate. And that is something that's really important to know. So I have several cards. I actually have 2 first edition Lugias that were in PSA 8.5s. I cracked them open. I sent them to BGS. They came back as a 9. And then I cracked one of them back open and I sent it back to PSA because I like the PSA holders more, and it came back as a 9. So those cards, if they are cracked and you send it back in raw, those population reports are not accurate. The only population report figure that is accurate is a 10. So if you don't know that, it's something you need to keep in mind.
Even those aren't accurate, right? Because if people crack those and send them to Beckett or CGC to get the pristine.
True, but you'd have to be on the spectrum to do that. But yes. So yeah, I wanted to touch back on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my most expensive card I still own. I have a first edition base set Blastoise PSA 9. So
wow,
it's up there. It's still up there.
Whoa.
Falling day by day. Let's see. I'm trying to find some of these. Did you guys see any questions you want me to take? I'm just trying to go through and find good ones. Oh, here. This one's always discussed on Pokenomics channel. I mean, we can touch this. Like, what do you guys think about the money flow in other card markets? It seems like most money long-term flows back to vintage, first appearance, rookie cards. Why wouldn't Pokemon do the same? Steve, go ahead. I mean, you're going to be more on this, thought process anyway.
I mean, I think it's a reasonable thing to think should happen. I think it's a healthy thing for the hobby if it does do that. Like if you're a car guy, at some point you probably really have let's say you really love Mustangs. Like, I don't know what y'all's cars is, but let's say you really love Mustang. Well, the best Mustang of all time has got to be the 359 Boss, right? Like everyone would want that car, the John Wick Mustang. that would be the car, but it's like a $400,000 car. So at a certain point, I think like an expectation that people would go back to really, if once they get deep and they're like thousands of hours in and years into the hobby, I think everyone wants a piece of the old, right? Not saying that it's going to perform better percentage wise, it might not, but I think if you stay with something, you will for sure go back to the old at some point. And it might not be a better investment, but I think it's always going to be a safe place to be. And that would be my opinion.
Orion?
Well, I think SM Pratt did a great video on this. This was pretty much what got me into completing my first edition base set. And mind you, most of the commons and uncommons are like 9s, whatever, 8s. And then the hollow rares are like 5, 6, 7s. You know, he said 9 first edition Blastoise, and my eyes feel like popping out of my head. I think he did a great video basically talking about, and I'm giving credit where it's due, right? This isn't an original idea. This is something that came from somebody that is well respected and been doing this for a very long time. He was kind of saying it's foundational. It's where the hobby began. And yeah, I do think a lot of people are going to come back to it. When first edition base set prices were suffering, he was saying he was like Kirby and he was sucking up all of the first edition supply. And that video really hit me because I was like, you know what? Like, I think a lot of people do think first edition base is like super boring. You know, the art's just sitting there, and you know, alt arts are just such a revolutionary thing now. And you know, first edition and base unlimited, it's just so boring. You know, WotC printed to oblivion. It's so boring. But I do think that's ultimately where a lot of people are going to come back to. Do I think the gains will be there because of that? I don't know. But yeah, like you said, you know, everybody wants a piece of history.
Well, we'll see. Here's one of my cases. This is what I feel about it. So these are all first edition base PSA 9. So
nice.
Bruh.
Oh yeah.
So I have everything but Charizard. Yeah, and so yeah, I believe in that as the first, right? The first edition. Now the 10s were a little out of my reach when I started buying these, so I went for the 9s. Just because I think the 10 populations are low enough to where it will drive people to the 9s. But yeah, I am about the first, right? I am about like the first of things, but that doesn't mean every vintage. And I think people, they may find something they like, and so like they convince themselves a lot of time that it's just gonna, kind of travel that far out. I don't think there's gonna be enough people that go back to like the sort of vintage, like the mid era. I don't think there's gonna be enough people that like come back and want, even someone like the older WotC. I don't know how those are gonna do. I don't know how the Nintendo era, the EX era, I don't know how that's gonna do. That's what really scares me. When you talk about like the first edition base set, right? Even like first edition Fossil and Jungle, just because the original 150, right? I do actually believe in that. That's why I bought those again. That's why I, have in my collection / investment. I talked about this before too. When investing and collecting kind of, overlap, one thing you have to think about is you have to ask yourself, do I think that this is going to be this cheap again? Now, I could say, okay, where's the best place to put my money? I could say, yeah, I still think I'd be better off putting this money in Modern Sealed. But if I know that I want to own these and I want a piece of this in case that does come to fruition and those do have the major price increase in the future, I do think we've had enough collapse and things are leveling out. And a lot of these cards are possibly the cheapest we're going to see again. And so it can make sense to buy at the levels they're at now. Like a lot of these hollows, these PSA 9 hollows I got in the, mid hundreds, like six.
What?
Oh yeah.
What? I
talked about it earlier. I mean, first edition PSA 9 Nido Kings ending at like in the 700s now.
I remember just a couple years. I mean, it was I think it was during the boom. I was buying some PSA 9 first editions for around the same, like right before everything really took off.
I just figured with my collection, with my first edition set, when I'm buying like, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s on that process and seeing them at like 300, 350, almost 400. I was like, I'm nervous to see what those numbers look like in the 9s. And I didn't even bother to look because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be priced out of whatever these grades are higher. And I think a lot of people do end up doing that. They look at a certain grade and they're like, if this is hurting for me, there's no way I could go to that. But I also think for me, I wanted to get in and I just wanted to get it as soon as possible. And I think slowly, especially now that we're talking about this, now that I know that there are 9s going for that kind of price for first edition cards, I'll probably be upgrading my set and selling my current cards.
And like, it's not all of them. Like, it's more like the less popular Pokemon, like, Alakazam's in there, like Mewtwo's up there, obviously Venusaur and Blastoise, Charizard. There's a few of them that are up there in the thousands, 2000s and more still. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them, especially at auction right now, you can find them under $1,000, which, like we just talked about, when you see Moonbreon, when you see these Latios cards, when you see these cards ending in the 2000s, I start looking at things like first edition base, going for in the hundreds. And even though they're not 10s, they're 9s. 10s very rarely hit the market for any of those cards. And so eventually people break down and say, okay, I want it to be part of my collection. I'll get the 9 now. I'll try to get the 10 later. And so, that's how I just still believe in 9 selling. I actually did a video about it a long time ago that a lot of the 9s during the boom actually outpaced some of the 10 counterparts. It's crazy. Wow. I know it's crazy to think about, but I did a whole video on it. I showed multiple circumstances where in a lot of different sets where the 9s actually outpaced percentage-wise some of the 10s. So it's not that 9s are always bad investments depending on, the rarity or the scarcity of those grades, whatever set they're in. So because once 10s, sell out and there's no sales being made, there's nothing else to buy but 9s. And then they see that growth. But yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at on that thing. I mean, I definitely do agree with the going back to the rookie cards. I just don't agree with the people who take the vintage like way too far, who get really in depth with the pop reports and they start extending it out to like late WotC, Nintendo era, EX era, and they think people are going to come back to all that. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to come back to like the original era and then wherever they got into the hobby, because that's how I feel. I mean, I like original and then I like XY era because that's when I got back in the hobby was XY. And a lot of people got into Sun and Moon. Now tons of people got into Sword and Shield. And I feel like if they ever go back, it's going to be to vintage, like first era, or it's going to be to Sword and Shield or wherever they got in.
Unless they're a completionist. If they're a completionist, then they're doomed.
You're rare. That's rare. Nostalgianomics, I'm curious on your opinions on Crown Zenith tins. Do you think they're good pickups by the case? Yeah, I mean, I think they're good, kind of like the blisters are. Any of the sets like Crown Zenith, like the special release sets where they don't have booster boxes and they're all auxiliary type products, I think you can do well in things other than the ETBs. So yeah, I like the tins. The pack prices are less. I think you should see. It's always a gamble on like how much of tins or 3-pack blisters or ETBs are printed. It's always a gamble of which one's going to go up more, but they all go up as the pack prices rise. A lot of the time, the tins are shorter printed sometimes. So yeah, I think they're good pickups. Do you guys pick up anything else besides booster boxes or?
I fell prey to just buying whatever was in stores, and that's one of the worst things you can do is go to Target, Walmart, GameStop, buy out everything they have, not think twice about it. That's my one regret in this hobby is when Brilliant Stars came out, I bought that everywhere. I didn't pull that Charizard. I opened so many of those packs, didn't pull that Charizard. That's the only thing I wanted to pull out of that set. And so I got burned, and I've learned my lesson, and I think there's so much product. Every time there's a small release or an extra expansion, it's confusing and you don't know where to start. And I think you learn. It's a learning lesson. You fail to succeed, and I'm at a point where it's just going to be booster boxes. It's just going to be booster boxes. I've got a lot of collection boxes and things like that, but moving forward, just booster boxes. Now, Crown Zenith was an anomaly. There's no booster box for that, right? So I bought like 20 ETBs and that was the end of that. And a couple Pikachu boxes that I'm keeping and that was the end of that.
Steve?
Well, Brilliant Stars, just full disclosure, was the last modern set that I bought. But I did go hard in celebrations, and they were kind of the same deal. It was either 10s or ETBs, and I have a shit ton of celebrations, 10s and ETBs. So, but ideally, I would just buy booster boxes, yes. But if it's
do you mean the collector's chest?
no, the actual mini 10 displays.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They have like 8 sealed 10s in them.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are really cool.
I have like 11 or 12 celebrations ETBs. We opened one on my channel, me and my wife, and the last pack she pulled the Charizard. And so celebrations really got me moving as far as modern going, because I was like, this set is amazing. Like, I really think celebrations could be one of the greats. Like past Evolving Skies, the value you're getting, your pull rate odds to get the cards you really want. The Umbreon Gold Star Celebrations card is beautiful. The Charizard's beautiful. You can get the Venusaur and the Blastoise. Those are great, and they've got that traditional art style. But as soon as I realized there was a ultra premium collection box with a gold, Charizard and Pikachu, I met a guy on Craigslist who was selling them for like $200 a piece, and I actually did a video very early on in the channel of me meeting this guy and being like, guys, we just found a case of ultra premium collection, and I opened up one, and the rest of them are sealed in the case. But like, I always knew that one thing that I bought early on into modern again was such a great move, and I wish I would have been way more aggressive as far as celebrations is concerned. And I just think now it's too late. Those ETBs were 45, 50. They're like, what, 70 now? I'm not trying to stock up celebrations now.
No, I'm with Steve. I went heavier in celebrations than anything ever since. Well, actually, probably like close to the dollar amount I was in on Evolutions back in the day. And the reason was it was the same exact consensus that me and a friend of mine came to back then. People love that base set Charizard artwork. It's the reason base set 2 is good. It's the reason legendary, like the Charizard and base set 2 as well. It's the reason legendary collection. It's like every time they reprint that artwork, people go crazy. And that was like our whole consensus when we were buying Evolutions cases. And then when this came back around, I'm like, yep, I'm going hard on it. And I was doing the same thing you were. And people on YouTube, there are certain creators, I'm not going to name anyone, and they can lie all they want. There were tons of creators saying, do not buy those at $200. Let them come back down to retail. They're too far over retail to buy them. And I was buying them. I was telling people they should buy them. And then when they kept going up, those same creators were saying, I never said it was a bad buy. There were a lot of people that said those were bad buys because they were double retail. But that product was a great buy no matter what price you could have got it in back then. 150, 200, even 225. And now what's at 400? I don't see it stopping there. Now that, obviously they're not getting reprinted. Now that, supply's going away. Now that they're grading that metal card again, it was a home run from the word go.
Are they grading the metal card again?
Yes. And people are getting hammered. So that card
when it was like 10 grand for that card, I was like, wait a minute, what?
Oh yeah, those cards are
TSA be grading the metal cards now?
Yes, they are.
Wow.
Yeah, you can go look on eBay. The last sold one was like $2 grand. So that's the thing about like investing in any single. That's like a very
10?
Yeah. Because now they're opened up.
$2 grand for a 10 for me. If I got a 10 on that card, I would so be stoked. But yeah, it was 10K.
If you bought it at 10K,
10 is like, wow, you're destroyed.
And I thought it was a really cool opportunity. Actually, I thought like, wow, that would have been if you could look forward 6 months and have graded a few of those in 10s or even bought them as 10s for $500. That would have been such a great play. And then here's the thing, man. We can't control what Pokemon does. We can't control what PSA does. Like, you're at the whims of these conglomerates. And these guys these are billion-dollar organizations. Like, that's the game we're playing in. So don't bet the farm.
I'm still in shock that the gold Charizard is a $2,000 10. I mean, what is it in a 9? I probably have a 9. I always say I probably have a 9 for any card I pull. over a 10 just because the odds.
I would at most modern 9s, even vintage. I mean, the difference between a 9 and a 10 can be like an 80% difference on the downside, or if you're like, you could buy 5 9s for the price of 110. You know, it's crazy.
One thing I think is hilarious about Pokemon too, I always think is so funny is, and I'm not saying they're not real they're not real things that happen and the real reasons, because they are real reasons, but there's always a reason for the price rises. Like there's always a reason. It's, oh, well, they stopped grading them. Oh, well, PSA shut down, so everything went crazy. Well, Logan Paul got in the hobby. Well, there's a pandemic. Well, now like things are too short printed. Now Pokemon needs to reprint more. Or, well, you know, the hype's, there's always like something, right? Before, when I got in, it was, well, Pokemon Go's bringing everyone. Well, Evolution's just making a mania. Well, it's just like people always come up with these like ideas on why the market goes up because no one wants to accept that prices rise over time. And I just foresee every year or two, we're going to have another, oh, well, this is why. Oh, well, this happened. And it's like, why can't we just always agree, hey, these prices just seem to rise over time?
But Pokemon's also done an extremely good job of their reprinting. The way they do reprinting, they've done a really, really good job of it. And I think that also makes it easier. Like, costs of everything are rising, so it's all relative. We've got inflation. Everything you're doing is costing more money now. So yeah, I would hope Pokemon would follow that trend for the most part. But what they're so good about is any kind of reprint. Like, they have a good branding with it. Like Celebrations was kind of the base set reprint and some other cards being thrown in there, and then they put a stamp on it. But man, they did such a good job executing it. And I just think they are good at not, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a great example. They've reprinted those sets into oblivion, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards are struggling unless they are the really, really valuable, cards like a Dark Duel Stories Blue Eyes White Dragon or a first edition Blue Eyes White Dragon. That is the Charizard of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Blue Eyes White Dragon, PSA 10, first edition. But they just reprinted that card in so many fashions. They just did the 25th anniversary, which was kind of like Pokemon. The problem is that they've done several reprints before that even happened. So,
hey, Ryan. So Ryan, Diana's your wife in the chat?
Yes.
She's.
I haven't looked at the chat, so I don't know if she's. Yeah,
I'm scrolling through trying to find questions and came across that. I didn't know that. That's crazy. She watches the lives.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. She's extremely supportive. I know some guys locally that are like, my wife doesn't want to hear me talk about anything Pokemon. So I'm very lucky that she's on board with everything. Seriously.
You guys into any of the alternative languages like Korean, Chinese, like anything other than like English, Japanese? I'm not, so I can't really speak it from any experience.
I will say because I bought a tote of Pokemon stuff recently, and in that was a stack of mint condition Spanish cards. Now I'm talking this. There's a Blastoise, that's the best card, but it's almost a complete set. It's missing Charizard, maybe 2 or 3 other base hollows in Spanish, but everything is mint condition. And there's a part of me that's like, okay, Japanese, sure, I'm definitely holding that. If I waltz upon some nice Japanese that's vintage, that's cool. It's basically like my English, just different language, but it's the old arts that I like. The Spanish one, for a second, I was like, I'm gonna find a way to sell this. I'll sell this at some point. Somebody will probably appreciate this more than me, but I've actually decided to hold on to it and see what happens because it's still a Spanish base set. Still the base set is Spanish base set unlimited, but the cards are in fantastic conditions. That's like the only thing I have that's different as far as that goes, but it's a big stack of them. So that was pretty cool.
All right. So Walrus, he took a break from trolling us for a second and said, can the market survive on pure investors / flippers with no collectors? Yeah, I don't really think it's like that. I mean, I think we are just engrossed in this little bubble, here on YouTube of this investor space. And I've talked about this before. It's like, how many people are in here? Like 100 and something people in this live right now. I know multiple channels like mine and yours, we get maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 views of video. It's not as big as people think. Like PokeRev's channel is like 2 million, subscribers. He gets hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views of video. It just seems so condensed because you have 100 people and, more in the comment sections of videos all together thinking and saying the same things. And it seems like everyone's doing it because that's all you're hearing. But then if you step out in the world, there's hundreds of thousands of people who are just opening, cracking the packs, enjoying it. It's parents and kids, it's kids and their friends. It's people are just enjoying the stuff. And so, I don't think there's too many investors and flippers. I just think it seems like it in our little space of YouTube and our space of the hobby. Steve,
I don't think there's enough, to be honest with you. When I think about like sellers that I see online, like frequently for like nice vintage cards, I can't really name that many that I've seen frequently. It's a pain in the butt selling. It's a pain in the butt selling. Somebody's got to do it.
Retro says flippers are less than 1% of the market. We chilling. Steve, what do you think, man?
I think it's an interesting thing to think about. I think it's an easy thing to get stuck in your head about because it's not like, at least for me, I have no one that I know in like my personal life that I can have a conversation with this stuff about. So my information is solely through the internet. And when you're on the internet, you start getting into the rabbit hole and then you're surrounded by nothing but that. And you can start feeling like, damn, dude, this is a super saturated space. But yeah, I think ultimately what you said, Alex, is probably true. Me seeing the kids the other day, like at the restaurant, and then the guy talking about his son opening just 11 Pokemon, like that's that organic interest. And there's something cool about just like the idea of Pokemon. I think that, I don't know. I think you nailed it, Alex.
Yeah, and Leviathan snakes. Who makes up the majority of the higher end market? People looking to primarily invest and make a profit, or those looking to collect rare cards? I honestly don't know. That's a great question.
It's a really good question. I think it'll always be an open-ended question. You just have to realize that, again, going back to that market depth conversation, if somebody is here primarily for the money, it's easy for them to focus in on a PSA 10 first edition Charizard and own a significant position they could have a large amount of that total market cap in their possession. But I think it'll always be an open-ended question, just something to always think about.
Yeah, and I think just because, people are buying things like high-end buyers, like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, he'll talk about his watch collection, and he obviously pays attention to the values of his watches. It's not like there's something that he needs to, flip for a profit, but obviously he does purchase watches for his collection that he, enjoys seeing the appreciation on them. And so even high-end buyers who are buying these $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 plus items, the reason they have that kind of money, unless, some trust fund baby or, some ridiculous lottery winner, a lot of times they have that money because they're smart with their money. And so they're not looking to throw their money into something that's going to lose them value. Some people are obviously just true collectors. They just want to own it. But most of those people, they do see the growth in the future. So they're investors, but they're not really flippers. So I don't know. I think it's probably the majority of the higher end market are looking to invest for a profit, but not really like a short-term profit flip type thing, more of like a long-term growth profit. That's my guess.
I personally think people are wanting to collect these cards. I think he's right about the depth of the market and like absolutely extremely easy to manipulate. Would it be really risky play still? Yes. I think people with a lot of money are not. It's just my frank opinion. I think people with a lot of money are being very traditional with that money. I don't think they're jumping into the Pokemon world. I think those are serious collectors. Those are streamers. Those are people that are really benefiting from the hobby and that are actually making revenue from promoting the hobby and putting that back into the hobby because they just love it. I just really don't think people with a lot of money are trying to jump into Pokemon. I think there are people with a lot of money that own insane collections, but I think they genuinely love that it's mainstream, love collecting again, and if you're making a lot of money, I just don't think you're worried about flipping cards. I don't think that's something on your radar. I honestly hate the fact that I've even considered, starting my eBay and starting just slowly selling off a lot, trimming, I'd say 5 to possibly 10% of my collection. I think it's kind of crazy that I've gotten to that point, but I need to, because it's financially, more responsible for me to do that for my family moving forward. But if I had a lot of money, would I be worried about making money off of Pokemon? No. I think a lot of people trying to make money in the hobby, trying to flip stuff. I think it's also about sustainability, and they're also trying to sustain their collecting addictions, myself included. I think it'll just be way easier for me to balance out and save all the other money I'm making, through working and running my bar. I think if I'm doing that and setting that money aside, I can use the money that I'm making from selling parts of my collection to reinvest into the hobby. I'm just kind of doing it to be sustainable. But yeah, I think people with a lot of money they're collecting because they enjoy it. I don't think they're thinking about, like, I'm going to make a killing on Pokemon, versus their stock market or buying real estate and renting out houses that you've repaired and renting them out to a couple people and taking in cash every single month, without having to put all this stuff on eBay and message people back and ship stuff out. It's not for the faint of heart.
Oh, did Steve leave us? Okay, I'm still scrolling through.
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Oh, you're good. I'm still scrolling through chat trying to look for any of the last questions on here. Steve, do you have anything you want to add before we kind of wrap things up here soon?
I can caveat off of Orion there. Just don't discount the fact that it's not really about the gains for a lot of people either. It's like collecting fine art. It's an alternative. It's a hedge for them. The guys that have a lot of money aren't really thinking about how much money they can make. They're thinking about how much money they can lose. So there's a family from Spain out of damn near ancient times. It's like from the 1200s. And the Spanish family has maintained their wealth for 800 years. And the three things they own are gold, fine art, and land. So wealth preservation. I think at the very high end, we're talking like PSA 10, first edition Charizard, Lugia, the trophy cards. We're talking the extremely high end stuff, not PSA 9 base set, which is cool and anybody can afford it after a few months of saving up. But like the out of reach shit is something I think Kevin O'Leary might have some of that stuff. I wouldn't put it past him or guys like him. So again, it's such a shallow market. I think these guys that they would have to have an interest in it. I don't think people are going to set out of their way to go do it. But if somebody was interested in it and then they made a couple of $10 million in crypto, I think it'd be an easy yes for a lot of people. And they're not the people that are being open about what's going on the internet either.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I know what goes through like guys like that's head. I'm obviously not there in my life, so I don't know how the people with those fat of pockets think. I just know how I think. And especially where I'm at in my life, I'm still thinking about the values of things. I'm not at a point where I can just buy things for thousands of dollars and not worry about the investment value behind them. But you could be right. At that level of net worth, you may just be at the point where you're not worried about little chump change like that.
Well, it's not that they're not worried about the value of something. It's that they're not worried about the appreciation of it. They're worried about hedging against like the US dollar or something like that. That might be more on their radar. And they say, well, and maybe it's not a Pokemon card, but there are hedges that people look at that they're not worried about the appreciation of the asset. They're worried about what kind of cross collateral thing they have going on with their other assets to kind of balance things out. So, but yeah, it's out of no one here, I'm sure, is in that boat. That's crazy money talk, but
right. Man, I'm just trying to like scroll through the chat quickly and I'm just trying to find any last minute questions we didn't hit. Did you guys see anything? Have you guys followed the chat at all? Did you see anything that I didn't hit that you wanted to kind of touch on, or did you guys have any subjects that you wanted to hit on before we ended things that we didn't get to?
Oh, Well, I kind of I just think it's a subject that's been beaten down so much, but getting your cards graded, especially right now when grading costs are $15 and we just witnessed them being 50. And a lot of people got burned in that way too. A lot of the value of their card was hinged on that grade being $50 to get the card graded. Now grading is $15. So everyone's like now immediately going, okay, this card is a $5 card. Grading is $15. It's only worth 20. So versus this card's a $5 card. Grading is 50. It's $55 now. This card. I never got into grading. I only graded one card of mine. That's a Shadowless Charizard. I sent it off to Beckett. It got a 5. I was happy with that. I was like, this is, that was the first Shadowless Charizard that I bought. And it was whatever. But it was an expensive process. And maybe it was because it got a mid-grade that I just I didn't see the value in it. Whereas if I had searched for a nicer card, and got that graded and it got a 9, it would be like, oh, home run. But to get that nicer card, you still would have made a very risky bet, spending, twice, 3 times as much and hoping that raw condition has no flaws or surprises for you before it goes off to get graded. I mean, grading is just, I think it's super risky, and I think some people do a great job of it, but I don't know if I'm one of those people.
I mean, I think grading is where the most money in the hobby is made. Do you guys know Z&G Emporium channel?
Dude, they're crushing it.
Yeah. So I've watched his channel since back in the day when he had like 1,000 subscribers. But one of the signs he had up was never punished, right? And because for the longest time, the market was it was just so stable that you could grade all these cards, and because of the boom and everything was going up, you just never get punished for it. You send in any cards you want, you get them back, and you basically sell them for more, and you paid for them because the value of the slab was enough to, make the value of the card go up enough, and you never got punished. And finally, we're getting to a point where people are finally getting punished. And with a slab costing $15 and you sending your raw card in, if you don't get that 10, if you get an 8, you're actually losing money now. And a lot of the 9s, you're not even making money. You're basically breaking even. And if you set them at auction, sometimes you're still losing. And so, yeah, it's definitely where you're going to make. I mean, Retrospecs, he's in the chat. I mean, he's mad grading right now. I mean, he talked about buying like 50 of a copy of one card and grading them all. And, he has it calculated out that if he gets a certain amount of 10s, a certain amount of 9s, and so on. And so, that's where still a key point of the hobby is grading. But as far as like doing it for yourself, if you're not, super good at pre-grading them and know that you're going to get the high grades, you're just kind of sending in a bunch of raw cards and they're not the right raw cards, right? They're like the less popular cards in the set. They're the ones that like, maybe they're going for, $5, but in a 9, they're only going for like 20. And you got your grading cost, shipping, and all that stuff worked in. And really it's like a 10 or bust. Yeah, I think people are getting punished a lot right now with grading. So I can definitely understand your hesitancy, and a lot of people, should probably remain hesitant if they don't really know what they're doing with grading right now. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I know there's fast money in grading with modern shit. If you have sealed boxes and you can send stuff in and you pay for the fast return and you're the first guy to put something on eBay, you can make some money. But like, that's not a game I play. I work my ass off and have a good career. So I don't have to do stuff like that. But to the guys that are out there hustling, I respect it, but you will eventually catch a bad one. Like, it's a risky game. If you're not the first one, then like it could go south. But Z&G Emporium, man, his service is awesome. I used him back when he first started it up with Graded Gym before they went tits up. I guess that was like right during the peak. It took like a year and a half to get the cards back, but I did like 500 card submission with him across 3 different submissions. Really like that guy. He's a great dude.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think
wow,
he is.
500 card submission. Woo!
Well, I was, and so I have some experience in the getting crushed on grading PSA cards. I did come out okay, but it took me, I don't know, probably 12 months to 18 months. I could go back and look to be exact, but I mean, it took me over a year to get the cards back. And by the time I got my cards back, the market was already kind of over. The easy money was kind of gone. So I had everything kind of figured out and was like, wow, this is going to be really good. And then there was no liquidity, and it was kind of put things up for auction, see what happens. So there's certainly risk in that fast money stuff, because I'm not saying I've never gotten tied up in it. It's enticing, right? But you can definitely be on the losing end of it.
Yeah, and people get into this fallacy of like, well, it costs $15 to grade, so the card's at least going to be worth 20. And it's like, no, like that's just what it's going to cost if anyone else wants to get it. But if just no one else wants that card, there's too many of that card in the market, and you throw it at a 99-cent auction, there's a great chance it doesn't even get to 20. I mean, that's just the reality we're in right now. I mean, I've been watching some crazy stuff. Like I was watching this card. So the Generations Full Art Jolteon. I've been watching some XY and Sun and Moon stuff, and the Generations Full Art Jolteon. I just saw it end today at $37 for a PSA 10. Like there's stuff like that. I mean, we're 10s are now going in like the 30s. So you can only imagine what like a 9's going for. An 8 you probably can't even sell. And so I mean we're gonna see more of that with the supply that Modern has. And you're gonna be a lot more selective with what how you play the hobby. If you're a flipper, like you said, be quick about it. If you're looking to invest, make sure your entry points are on point. Don't FOMO into things right when they're at their highest, right when they're out the gate. And I'm biased. I just still think Seal is probably your safest way to play Modern, but to each their own.
100%. If you're playing Modern, Seal is definitely the safest. I don't think that's even up for debate, is it? But in this community, I'm asking genuinely, I don't know, but is that actually up for debate? I mean, are there people that think Modern singles are safer than Modern sealed?
I would know.
Think not. Okay.
Hey, well, Steve, one last question though. Like, you said you kind of stopped at Brilliant Stars, so are you kind of just putting the hold on Pokemon, like investing in Pokemon right now, or just kind of holding what you got? Are you planning on continuing to buy? Are you looking for certain things in the market to happen before you jump back in? Are you just uncertain? Like, where's your head at right now?
No, I am holding off on buying anything. And not because I don't think there's good returns in this stuff. I mean, your spreadsheet video you did earlier today it's the data's there. And I'm not one of the people that thinks Modern's going in the toilet. Again, it's the opportunity cost. I want to have more dry powder on me right now to take advantage of some things that I think are coming. So, and now to caveat off that, it's if you can go and deploy X capital into something and make 100% return, and then go back and buy something that maybe has already hit its lows, but it's only up, let's say it's up 20% off the lows. Yeah, you're not buying it at the low, but you're able to deploy your capital and make a sizable return. So then you can come back in and buy that, even though that item that you were looking at is off its lows. Let's say it's Crown Zenith. Maybe you didn't buy at the low, but you deployed your capital elsewhere, made 100% return on it, and now you're coming back in buying Crown Zenith ETBs, and they're starting to come out of rotation now. So now those are out of print. They went up, say, 40%. So the guys that got in at the bottom, good for them. But I was able to make 100% here, buy in here, off, not on the lows. But, that's kind of where my head's at. And that's a bit like timing the market, which I'm not huge on, but just like macro, even though I say I'm not huge on timing the market, like macro, I think we're in a risk-off environment. And until we go back to a risk-on environment, I just want to have some dry powder. So, yes, I have halted all Modern Pokemon buying, but I will re-enter.
Orion, man. So we don't go almost 3 hours, which is insanely long live stream. What's kind of your final thoughts, final thing you want to get out and say? Feel free to plug your channel. Just the mic's yours, man. What do you want to get out there?
This is a historic day. This is a big deal for my channel. My channel is not big. It's definitely smaller than yours. And it's very, very hard, with algorithms and just getting a couple thousand views on a video. That's the point I'm still trying to get to consistently. That takes work, that takes consistency, and that takes good quality content. I'm so stoked. I got to chop it up, get all those things out on a stream, have it been recorded, been a part of it. I feel really honored to be brought on and have this conversation. And also, like, generationally, like, how old are you guys? Because I'm 28.
32.
29.
So 28, 29, 32. So basically, generationally, we've got different opinions here. I think that's pretty cool for the viewers to be able to be a part of that and see different opinions. And I'm like super humbled over here. Like, I think in the last couple of years, I've built an insane collection, and I'm proud of that. But hearing other people being calculated with it, willing to let go of those things despite, how important they may be to them, for the actual return on it, that's something that I need to hear. That's an influence. Those are role models that I need to have. And it's hard to find that in the community right now. People talking about, when you have these things, the story might not be to the moon. So you have to be rational here. You have to, deploy your money elsewhere and see if it can work harder for you. And I agree. I think we're in a risk-off environment right now, and I think your money being in like a money market account is probably not only going to be safer, but it's going to allow you a lot more liquidity and allow you to do more. And I think overall we got a lot of good points out, and I think you guys did fantastic, and I got a lot out of it. Steve, I've learned a crap ton from you. It sounds like you still have an amazing collection. I'm sure you've got several grails, like high grade cards, and just hearing people that are around my age that are buying that steel product, that have been buying that steel product for years and really stuck with it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool because, like you guys have said, like, I don't have anybody else that I can really talk about the stuff with that I know close to me locally. But that's a huge community online, and that's why I'm here on YouTube.
Yeah, guys, I posted Orion's YouTube channel and Steve's YouTube channel. If he ever posts another video on there, at least you can see the one he did. But yeah, make sure to go subscribe to those guys and give them some love. And they're gonna have a lot of different. If Steve makes videos, and I know Orion does a lot of different content. So just always good to have a lot of different perspectives out there to kind of form your own opinion. So those links are right there. Make sure you guys go check them out. Steve, you want to go?
Yeah, Orion, thanks for the kind words, man. Seemed like a super great dude and a genuine collector, but somebody's also hustling. I respect that. That's awesome. And Alex, thanks a lot for having me on, man. It's really cool of you. Again, not a content creator, so the fact that I'm here and able to contribute a little bit to the content that I consume a lot of is cool. I've watched a lot of these live streams, so now I'm on the other end of that, and it's kind of neat. So yeah, it's cool. So I appreciate both you guys and everyone who's watching, and it's been a fun couple hours, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, I hope everyone out there enjoyed it. I mean, I think from the chat I could tell a lot of people did. So maybe we'll do this again sometime. Thanks for everyone who's sticking with us this whole time, and anyone who is watching this after the fact. I hope you guys got something good out of this. A bunch of different perspective, different ways to see the hobby. Other than that, be back here in another video soon. We're out.
Hey.